president? Going to the next meeting.
I made changes this morning and sent it.
Okay.
So if you want to pull that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the board.
We have like 2 more weeks. We have, we're gonna have another meeting.
Good description. Yeah, you know, in case you have insomnia or anything.
March, MARCH.
Perfect.
Where am I looking?
That's the chairman.
Next page. I made
How
some
are you?
changes on that.
Okay, so you want to hold on to it?
Yeah, I would do
The
it
league
next
is
week.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday next week.
Yeah.
Hey, Paul?
Yes, I do.
Yes. Whenever you're ready to go.
We're good? I got to tell you, you have hours of operation for garage sales, but not for businesses.
Yeah, well, I don't know. You want him off?
Mayor Galise.
Here.
Mr. Gasparini.
Here?
Councilman LaForgia.
Here.
Mr. Spila.
Here.
Mr. Perrino.
Here.
Mr. Palafonte.
Here.
Mr. Dutcher.
Here.
Mr. Castelli. Mr. Latimer. Chairman Cafone.
Here, can everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. Adequate notice of the time and date of this meeting was posted in the lobby of the municipal building and delivered to the Star Ledger and the Progress newspapers. Our first order of business, would like approval of the minutes for April 14th, 2025 regular meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Chairman, there was one correction on page 14. It's got me listed as chairman instead of councilman. I mean, just a.
Okay, let the record reflect that'll be changed to councilman as opposed to chairman.
Promotion or a promotion?
I don't know.
Okay, with that change, Mayor Galise.
Aye.
Mr. Gasparini.
Aye.
Councilman LaForgia.
Aye.
Mr. Perrino. Aye. Mr. Palafonte.
Aye.
Mr. Dutcher.
Aye.
Chairman Cafone.
Aye. Next order of business is memorialization of resolution, application 6-2025. That is 44 Sunset Road, Block 2001, Lot 3. It is a minor subdivision and site plan. We have a motion to approve this resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Mayor Galise.
Aye.
Mr. Gasparini.
Aye.
Councilman LaForgia.
Aye.
Mr. Perrino. Mr. Palafonte.
Aye.
Mr. Dutcher.
Aye.
Chairman Cafone.
Aye. The next memorialization, application 5-2025, March Carroll Fairfield LLC. We're going to table this to the next meeting. Our attorney is going to make some changes to the resolution. So we have a motion to table this to the next meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Mayor Galise.
Aye.
Mr. Gasparini.
Aye.
Councilman LaForgia.
Aye.
Mr. Perrino. Mr. Palafonte.
Aye.
Mr. Dutcher.
Aye.
Chairman Cafone.
Aye. Okay, under old business, application 2025, Toll NJ1 LLC, 100 West Greenbrook Road, North Caldwell, New Jersey, block 2101, lot 8.03.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'm going to recuse myself.
Let the record reflect that Phil will be recusing himself.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Can everyone hear me?
We hear you.
Everyone hear me? Okay, good. Try to be close to the mic. Good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all again. I'm Kate Coffey from Day Pitney. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Toll NJ1 LLC. As you know, the property that we're talking about is the former Greenbrook Country Club, located at Block 1902, lots 12 and 13, Block 2003, Lot 1, and Block 2101, Lot 8.03. We were last here on October 14th, and we provided some architectural testimony then. Our architect is back this evening to close out some open items. As a reminder, the applicant is seeking major subdivision and site plan approval to create 150 fee simple lots, which will each have single-family homes, 7 open space lots, and 1 lot that will contain affordable units, 18 family, 17 age-restricted. When we were last here on October 14th, our traffic expert, Carl Pinky, completed his testimony. As I mentioned, our architect, Steve Tiki, is back this evening to close out the open items from his testimony. And then you may recall that when we were here last month, I had previewed to the board and the public that we were in the process of making pretty substantial changes to the plans in response to comments that we had heard from the board as well as the public related to grading, the retaining walls, and stormwater. We also, during the pendency between the September meeting and this meeting, met with our neighbors at Sterling Green. Our engineer is here tonight to present those proposed modifications and also address some additional revisions to the plans. Some other housekeeping items. When we were here last month, we were talking about ownership of sewer and water. The applicant will agree to take ownership of the sewer. As for the water, what we would like to propose is that we will coordinate with your DPW. Our understanding is the DPW is on your BSDW permit. So we need to coordinate with them and see what ownership we can take and what maintenance we can take, but to the extent we can, we will. So we'd suggest that if we were approved, we'd make that a condition to coordinate with them offline and provide for those obligations in the developer's agreement.
Can you also coordinate with our attorney when you're dealing with the DPW?
But certainly.
That would be, I think, for the board and for the town, that would be important to do, because even if we could do some type of a hybrid, there may be things that have to be put in the resolution. So if we could do that sooner than later. But that would be preferable. The other thing too is I did see an email from our engineer with regard to the whole project and some questions with regard to availability to review it. I just wanted to make sure that that you had enough time to review anything, or if you had any concerns.
Well, we first of all, we apologize for the board members for not getting you the report on Friday, but the stormwater management report came in a carton of paper, and Jay, I'm guessing 2,500 pages, something like that.
3,000.
Yeah, give or take. That I must have missed 500. But we wanted to give you as complete a review as we could, so we kind of worked on it through the weekend and issued it on Sunday so that everybody could enjoy it after the Giants collapse. The drawback that I see from the submittal that was made is it does do a lot to address the discussion that was had with regards to Sterling Green, the properties, and the adjacent residential properties in terms of the amount of work that Mr. Cruz put in to revise the plans, to change the grading, to relocate units, to create bigger setbacks, and to reduce the height of the walls that are adjacent to that area. But we probably still have about 80% of our report that hasn't been addressed. And a lot of the things that were discussed have not been addressed and have not been submitted. One of the comments, and I don't know if I know the architect is here tonight because the attorney said that, but one of the comments from the board at the last hearing was to get a rendering of the proposed units from the adjacent residential properties. We walked the property to do that, but we did not receive those renderings ahead of this hearing. I don't know if the board noticed that, because there is a lot of paper. The discussion was had on the, the entry drive and the modifications that were gonna be made to that. None of that is in this submittal. So we have, and there's a lot of drainage issues, basic drainage issues, that we've spoken about, with regards to the existing condition and the stormwater runoff curves that drive the existing condition, and none of that has been addressed. So my concern is that while we're making progress, we've got a big project ahead of us, and it's like we're taking it in little pieces, biting little pieces off at a time, and it's a little bit frustrating for the board. I know it was difficult for our office in our review. So I'm concerned that as other things get addressed, they're going to change things that we've already looked at, and we just go around in a big circle.
So certainly, I apologize if you're frustrated. It was not our intent. We do have some exhibits this evening that are responsive to the feedback that we had received at the meeting that we intended to show this evening, so hopefully that will help. And then I know, for example, with respect to the stormwater, there are a number of technical comments that were in your September memorandum and carry forward into this memorandum. In September, we had indicated that we would comply with all of those comments, and we remain committed to complying with all of them. Our suggestion was that those could continue to be worked out between our professionals as in terms of resolution compliance, for example, if to the extent necessary. But we understand the comments and we agree to comply with them.
But because of the size of this project, it would be better to have another technical meeting to iron out all this so it's presented to the board cleanly instead of, we're doing it, piecemeal and.
So are you thinking of a technical meeting or between the engineers is what you're thinking, Mr.
Between
King?
the engineers, myself,
And our planner.
and the planner, to try to, address all those issues, so we're not going back and forth. It's almost like tennis, we take your serve and then it goes back, and, it's getting there, but I think we could accomplish more if we just address those issues at a meeting and then present it clean to the board.
But my suggestion would be, let's see where we get tonight, because I think, again, we do agree with Mr. Petrie's comments. It's not as though we oppose them or we think that we disagree with them. And why don't we see where we end up tonight, and then if we need a technical meeting, we can do that.
Mr. Petrie, they may agree with your comments, but aren't there answers to technical questions that are asked?
Well, one of the dilemmas that I have with regards to stormwater, and it's an area where myself and Mr. Cruz just, I guess, disagree. I had a comment early on about the runoff coefficients that were utilized in the existing conditions report, and Mr. Cruz said that he believed that, that they were justified doing it that way, and based upon the BMP, I disagree with that statement, but I said, look, if DEP tells me I have to back off, then I'll back off. But if somebody doesn't tell me that I can ignore the state regulations, I'm not going to ignore the state regulations. Our biggest concern in Fairfield is always water, runoff, and the flooding conditions that it creates.
On that note, Mr. Petrie, though, if I may, as you know, we were required to go to the DEP to receive the necessary permitting associated with our stormwater management design. And I'm aware of the disagreement that you and Mr. Cruz have as to what the appropriate standard is. Ultimately, the question is, how does the DEP apply its rules? So if the DEP tells us, Mr. Cruz is wrong, you should have done it the way Mr. Petrie says, we have to redesign it, at which point we have to come back to the board. I'm not sure that we want to delay this application and wait to hear from the DEP to review the pending stormwater management applications to them. I think the preference would be to complete our process here. If the DEP tells us you're doing it wrong, we'll come back with an amended application. We'll have to. We have no other choice.
Have you reached out to the DEP?
I mean, I have to have Mr. Cruz come up and testify on that because I couldn't answer that. Yeah, might as well.
You've been previously sworn, you understand you're still under oath, correct?
Wait. How do I turn this on?
Push the button on the bottom.
See if I did it.
Nope.
No.
Button on the bottom?
Right on the bottom.
No?
Check.
Oh, it turned blue. There you go.
Perfect.
Name is Jay Cruz, last name spelled Kruse. Still under oath, yes, correct.
Thank you.
Regarding the question with DEP correspondence, we have had a pre-application meeting with the DEP, actually back in the late summertime in anticipation of this process, to just get feedback on where we were heading with potential application. The specific item that Mr. Petrie has brought up was not discussed at that meeting, but obviously we've been discussing it here on several occasions about our interpretation of the regulation and Mr. Petrie's interpretation of regulation. But there has been no specific discussion with the DEP on that item.
And don't you think it would be in your best interest to, we've been talking about it for quite a while, to reach out to the DEP and get a determination? Or at least a gut feeling of what they're,
We can certainly do that, but nothing from the DEP initially is binding, and that's what they
no, I
always say.
understand that, but they probably give you a, which way they're leaning.
Well, let me ask two questions different. One, will they tell you which way they're leaning, and will they do so in a timely fashion?
I don't want to get into timely fashions with the DEP.
I'm
But yeah,
just trying to be
yes,
realistic.
yes.
Yeah.
We can request the discussion of that during a pre-application meeting, but my prior dealings with the DEP and anticipation is they will not be committal until a formal application has been made. But we can always ask.
So would you be against submitting it with Mr. Petrie's recommendations? And then if they say we can't do it, then you can make the changes?
So my understanding of the way that the rules read is that Mr. Petrie's reading of the rules would provide for even further stormwater management. So I don't know that the DEP would ever say, oh no, it's too much stormwater management, right? So I don't know that in terms of calling the question for the DEP, that would result in getting the answer that we're all trying to decide, which is which standard governs. And in addition to that, I think the goal here is rather than engage in a pretty costly redesign at this point to go back and do the stormwater utilizing different coefficients if we don't even need to, the preference would be to complete this process and then see what the DEP has to say. We do have language, as I'm sure you know, in our ordinance that talks about an efficient planning board process and avoiding cost-generative processes. So I think the goal would be to complete this process here, see what the DEP says. We recognize it's at our risk. If DEP says, nope, you guys are wrong, Petrie's right, we got to come back. But
So
we're
how
pretty
do we-
confident in
how
our
do we-
interpretation.
How do we vote on something if we don't agree on what they're both doing? We're not gonna take a vote.
And if 80% of what we're looking for is not answered after every meeting, why are we going forward like this? We're only getting 20% of the answers.
I agree. I think it's terrible. I think we're doing our homework in the
We were
classroom.
here and we
You guys come here,
we gave you a list of questions, and from what I understand, 20% of them were answered. Why are we doing here?
So, Mayor, we thought and perhaps this is a matter of miscommunication, that when we indicated we would comply with all of those comments, we were communicating that we were agreeing to make those revisions. I don't know that we understood you were expecting the plans to reflect all of those revisions in the interim. Because frankly, we thought our compliance, using the tennis analogy, the ball was hit and received, and we didn't see that as hitting it back. We saw it as we've agreed to your comment. So I don't know that we were aware that you were expecting fully revised plans with all of these, particularly the stormwater details.
Yeah, but you're disagreeing with Mr. Petrie's one point right there about with the DEP, so you're not agreeing to it.
So that was one that when we were here in September, we said that we disagreed with the
Why not err
interpretation.
on the side of holding back more water, retaining more water, as opposed to going the lesser way?
When you know Fairfield has a tremendous flooding issue.
So as we said previously, the stormwater management plan that we've designed, we believe does meet the requirements, is a substantial improvement to the stormwater management required by DEP. And we don't believe that additional expensive re-engineering, not to mention extra stormwater management that's not necessary, is appropriate.
But our professor doesn't agree with you.
I'm sorry, gentlemen, I can't hear you
I'm
both.
sorry.
Jay, explain the standard, explain what it is specifically that Mr. Petrie and you, based on our design and application,
Sure.
disagree on.
I just want to say one thing. 90% of the time, a board will agree and support their professionals. And you have our professionals saying there's an issue.
So let me, and maybe it's helpful to explain what the question is. So the question is, what's the existing standard to which, when you're designing stormwater management, Mr. Cruz, correct me if I'm wrong, part of the stormwater management design is based off of what the existing condition of the property is, correct?
Correct.
And so the question that's being raised is, what do we consider the existing condition of the property to be? And the stormwater management plan that you designed, Mr. Cruz, is based off of the condition of the property as it has been utilized as a golf course, which is also reflective of its current condition, which is mowed today, correct?
Correct.
And Mr. Petrie's position is that there was a period of several months when the golf course was not mowed, and that therefore the stormwater management design should treat the property as a meadow because for a few months it was not mowed. And so the question is whether the few months of not mowing transformed the property into a meadow, even though it is once again mowed into its original golf course status, or whether should be done based off of the golf course status. That's the question for the DEP. Hopefully you and Mr. Petrie agree that's the kind of the baseline question.
The BMP manual says this, and I quote, "If more than one land cover has existed on the site during the 5 years immediately prior to the time of the application, the land cover with the lowest runoff potential shall be used for computation." Shall be, not maybe, not should be, shall be. The lowest runoff coefficient. And in fairness to the applicant, from October until August is how long it went without being mowed. And it wasn't just the Fairfield portion, it's the North Caldwell portion.
The whole point.
So I think this board needs to consider the runoff from North Caldwell and how that's being modeled as well, because that's ultimately coming to us.
Mhm.
And so I think both municipalities have to be involved in this. And if the board chooses, I will regurgitate that to the review engineer in North Caldwell. And if the board wishes, I will write the email to Dennis Contois at DEP. I will copy Mr. Cruz and I will copy the board engineer for North Caldwell so that we can all be on the exact same page with the exact same question,
In an effort to get a determination.
so that we can get it done. I don't want to, if we vote on an application based upon Mr. Cruz's interpretation, and DEP says no, that changes the basins. That changes the size of the basins, it changes the depth of the basins, changes the volume of the basins. And that might affect the site plan.
It would require an amended site plan. We don't disagree with you. And we realize that.
But instead of taking all this testimony on something that may not even be relevant because of a change, wouldn't it be prudent that we get that answer first, so it's a clean application, instead of going back and forth, back and forth?
I would say if we can get the answer and get it quickly, I think that would be helpful.
So you
That's the
put
question.
the board in a very difficult situation. I would think that they're gonna agree with their expert, because their obligation is to the town, to the people of the town. If they believe that there's gonna be excess runoff water, flooding, and again, this is Fairfield, it's not some town in the mountains, it's Fairfield, so you know how they're worried about water. What do you think is gonna happen with this application?
So I appreciate that, Mr. King. However, in my experience, many times applications are conditioned upon outside approvals.
I get it if it's a simple thing, but if you're gonna have to redesign basins, pipes, where they go, it's gonna affect your road system, it's gonna affect the whole project.
What I really don't understand is, we had this conversation in August, and to date, you haven't even attempted to find out who's right.
I think that
So really, it's not a waste of time at this point. You've already wasted months.
Well, I would say, Mr. Gasparini, I think we do feel that we've made significant progress in terms of working with our neighbors, and so the time has not been a waste. Because I think,
That's a totally different issue.
No, my point being that-
Lowering of the walls and the regrading, it should have been like that from the beginning. That's on you. That's not on the board or the people that live there. That was a poor design from day one. And thankfully, it's being changed. That's great, and they're all gonna hear about it, maybe tonight, maybe not. However, I still think this is a very big issue. And it's a big issue because it could affect your whole development. Not only the drainage, it could affect the number of homes possibly because of the basin sizes. And I think you know that. And for us to sit here, I'm paid, okay? The rest of these people are volunteers except for our professionals. I don't want to waste anybody's time. And I don't want to waste your time.
so we certainly don't want to waste anybody's time either. And my suggestion, I think, to that end is that maybe we start getting into the testimony that we can cover and see where we end up in terms of the other items that we have to discuss this evening. That being said, I think to the extent we're able to get an answer out of DEP, that's great. But I will say the applicant has been working very hard to incorporate the feedback that we've received to date, and intend to continue to do so.
Also, with that being said, we certainly need to have North Caldwell involved in it. More than half the property is owned by North Caldwell, and that's going to be developed, correct?
It is. So my understanding, Mr. Cruz, is that the stormwater management design that has been submitted to Fairfield factors in the runoff from North Caldwell as well, correct?
Yes, it's all combined.
Right, and so, and whatever the guidance from DEP is, it will apply to all of it. So I can't imagine, I mean, well, stranger things have happened with the DEP, but I can't imagine that they would have one interpretation for one half of the golf course and a different interpretation for the other
You
half.
already approved the North Caldwell side of the plan.
Pardon? No,
So
no.
that's going to affect what we do here.
I'm sorry,
needs-
Mr. Chairman, could you repeat that? I was confused by what you said.
North Caldwell hasn't approved the development yet?
Has
You don't-
not.
He has not.
Correct.
They're going to make changes. So how do you know those changes that they're going to require you to make don't affect our water storm management?
So you're correct that there's a little bit of a chicken and egg that happens here where both have to work together. So what we do know is we've received review memoranda from the North Caldwell engineers, and we've had one hearing with them. We have an additional one coming up based on the feedback that we've had from their professionals. We don't expect that there would be additional revisions to the basins to address the North Caldwell flow. That, right, because we've received their engineers' review memorandum, for example. So they're not asking for revisions beyond what's already incorporated into the stormwater management report that's been submitted to Fairfield. That said, I agree with you, the feedback from DEP is going to influence how the runoff is treated from the entirety of the golf course. So if they say Mr. Petrie's correct, then all of the flow has to be calculated accordingly. But of course, we don't know that today. So hopefully that is responsive to
So,
your question.
Mr. Petrie, would you get in touch with North Caldwell and their professionals and have a conversation with them and send them a letter to make sure we're all on the same page?
Yes, we have been conversing with the review engineer in North Caldwell, and generally, we have been exchanging reports so that we both know what the other side is thinking. It doesn't always translate in, but I will likely be attending Monday's hearing in North Caldwell as a resident of the town.
Mr. Chairman, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Petrie. North Caldwell's on the high side, right?
That
So,
is
I mean, you know,
correct.
when you're on the high side of the hill, what goes downhill, you're not too worried about, right? It's out of our world. So to say that North Caldwell, you know, is hunky-dory about what you're doing, they don't really have the same impact. We're at the bottom of the hill. We're getting everything, right? And to the mayor's point, I have to tell you, I've sat on both sides of this. I've sat where you are on major land development, and I sit here as a board member. And I am completely uncomfortable with the lack of due diligence. You talk about an ordinance that the board has to not impose costs on the applicant, but to Mr. Gasparini's point, you know, we're paying our professionals to sit here 4 or 5 hours every run, month after month, and we're not getting our homework done.
So, Mr. Dutcher, a couple of things just to explain what I was saying. I had understood Chairman Cafone's question to be about whether additional revisions were expected to come from the North Caldwell reviewing staff that would then result in additional revisions to what was being submitted to Fairfield. My point was, I do not expect additional revisions coming out of the North Caldwell staff based on the reports that we'd received today. We appreciate that Fairfield is on the receiving end. As for your professionals, and of course, I'm sure you're aware, that actually comes out of the escrow that the applicant posts, so we're paying for your professionals' time. But we are certainly appreciative of the time that all of the board members and the volunteers put into this, which is, and frankly, we were really excited to show you the progress that we'd made on the plans and to also close out the architectural comments that we'd received this evening. And we do appreciate the time and attention that you all are spending, and we recognize that you're not getting paid for that time.
So then you recognize that really all you're ready to do is present the architectural testimony and not the stormwater management testimony from your engineer?
Well, I think there's a number of other engineering items that were in Mr. Petrie's report that we can talk about that are not associated with stormwater that we could probably cover as well.
And did you bring the renderings that we asked for?
We do have renderings.
Okay, because they weren't in the packet.
Right, they're an exhibit for this evening.
Okay.
I got one further question.
Sure.
So are you currently involved in meetings with the North Caldwell Planning Board for the project in North Caldwell?
So we have a hearing scheduled before the North Caldwell Planning Board. Is that what you're asking,
Yes,
Mr.
is
Chairman?
this the first hearing that
We've
you?
already had one.
You've
We have
had
another
one
one
here,
coming
so-
up. Yes.
So if it would be more comfortable for the board, being that we're out there at the bottom of the hill, why wouldn't you go to North Caldwell and finish that project first and then come back to us? And then we could see, okay, this is what they've done there. And then we could see how much water that we could accept from North Caldwell flood.
So, Mr. Cafone, again, in both municipalities, the development in both municipalities are contemplated to address affordable housing obligations, among other things. And so, and they're both meant to be addressed expeditiously.
Now, we're well aware of the housing, and we're well aware of the apartments that are going to be there in the low-income housing or below to moderate income.
Right.
And we don't really have an issue with that. We have an issue with the water.
I understand that. And so, again, our understanding is that North Caldwell is comfortable with the stormwater management. So we
Because
don't
you're at the
expect,
top of the hill.
so we don't expect revisions to come from North Caldwell such that the Fairfield Board needs to delay its consideration of the stormwater management until after the North Caldwell application is approved, because that variable is not changing. The variable that may change would be based on the DEP feedback, which Mr. Petrie has indicated he's going to reach out to try to get. And if it's easier, Mr. Cruz, I'm sure, could reach out as well. We can coordinate that offline. My point being that waiting till a North Caldwell application is approved seems like unnecessary delay to me, because the variable, again, coming out of North Caldwell is not changing, and we don't know what the timing for their process is going to look like, because of course we don't know about their quorums and the rest of the things on their docket and how they're going to manage it. We do recognize that, of course, we have an obligation to make sure that the plans that are approved by the town can be built to the extent that there are revisions that are required because of feedback from DEP or any other governing body that has jurisdiction over it. We'd be obligated to come back to the board. And for that matter, we'd probably have to go back to North Caldwell as well. If there was some, if the DEP required additional changes, even after they provide feedback to us.
You realize that the board probably will not vote until Mr. Petrie and your engineer get together and resolve the issue. So there will be no vote until you come up with some kind of common ground to this.
Or there will be a vote.
Or there will be a vote.
Based upon the board's professionals, which.
May I ask a question? As a board, Mr. King, can we tell the applicant, obviously, like Mr. Gasparini said, we've been at this for months now. They've never made an additional effort to contact the DEP, and, I get the DEP component, right? But can we impose a deadline to get an answer or some sort of progression from the DEP? Because this DEP is lingering out here, so these guys could play tennis all day long. If the DEP is the governing body, is the do-all, say-all, why aren't we there? I mean, why aren't we at the DEP saying, hey, what is it, do you like Mr. Cruz? Do you like Mr. Petrie's idea? I mean, we still have that variable that month after month, we're still talking about, we have to get to the DEP and get a resolution or an answer, but we've made one attempt. Like, I mean, shouldn't there be some sort of due diligence to getting that information?
I mean, I think the applicant should be calling and trying to run that down, because it's a very important issue. It would.
Not the biggest.
Yeah, exactly, because it's gonna affect the whole project.
So, I mean, I think we've certainly heard you. And again, my suggestion would be Mr. Cruz and Mr. Petrie coordinate offline as to the kind of query that goes into the DEP. And I guess what I would say, Mr. Dutcher, is I'm not sure anyone's in a position to make promises as to when the DEP will respond to us. Hopefully with the firepower between Mr. Petrie and Mr. Cruz, we'll get an answer sooner than later, but we can certainly try, to your point.
I completely get that, and
Yeah.
believe me, I'm sympathetic, but the problem is, if you don't put your one foot in front of the other, you're never gonna walk.
Understood.
Standing here just saying the DEP, month after month, there's been no attempt from your side, who is confident that their design is substantial enough to kind of get the blessing, but yet our side is not in agreement with that. Prove us wrong. Give us a reason to agree with you. But you're not making that effort. You're not walking. And we're sitting here watching the movie.
Question. Last batch of plans came with different phases involved in it. Is it your plan to work the development in phases? One has to be complete before 2 and then 3? That's the first question. The second question I have, how does that affect what's happening up in Caldwell? Are they going to be done simultaneously, before or after us?
So, Mr. Cruz, do you want to? Or here.
Sorry. Can everybody hear me? It just kind of keeps shutting off. Sorry about that. So the Fairfield portion will be progressed in phases, 3 phases. That'll follow the natural course of construction, with the first phase being along the southern border of Fairfield. So all the stormwater infrastructure is placed in first, and then continues to progress upwards up the hill. Overall site work will also be done together between North Caldwell and Fairfield. So there's stormwater infrastructure on North Caldwell at the lower end of the border between North Caldwell and Fairfield. That stormwater infrastructure will be installed first in their first phase, so it goes in concurrently.
Thank you.
And both of those structures will be done at the same time. The southern end of ours and the southern end of North Caldwell, both of those structures will be built at the same time?
As the earth moving activities occur, we'll start, I guess, with the phase 1 in Fairfield, which is the border between the office complex, Sterling Green, and the property.
Right.
And then the stormwater at the border between North Caldwell and Fairfield will also be done.
Will be put into place before any other construction?
Correct.
Okay.
So I guess what I'm hearing is our engineer is not comfortable with this stormwater testimony or what your engineer has presented. So I don't know that it's a good use of time or resources to hear that testimony tonight. That's my thought process. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Petrie?
No, I think that's the primary thing that there's a handful of things that I'm concerned with that I would like to see information on to get a little bit more comfortable with where we're going. Stormwater's the first, and I will draft an email to Dennis Contoys. I will share the email with Mr. Cruz and with Boswell Engineering before I send it, in case anybody has comments on the way I write it, because sometimes the way you write it dictates what the answer might be.
So then you should write it.
Well, that's why I volunteered to do so, because I think it's in this board's best interest if I write it. I want to keep it as neutral as I can, but I have a concern. The second thing I think this board needs to see more information on is the entry drive, because there were modifications that were to be made to the bridge of the entry drive, and the bridge of the entry drive would have approach guide rails and crash cushions that would have to be installed in order to prevent cars leaving the road from ending up in Greenbrook, which is not what anybody wants. And those guide rails and crash cushions would likely modify the driveways to the existing residential homes that are there today. So that needs to be detailed. And why does that need to be detailed? Because the way the plans stand today, there's a variance required for the roads. And we don't need to have a variance. The applicant has said that they can fix that, and we need to see that and have the opportunity to review that. So we're sure that it doesn't need a variance. The other issues that, you know, continue to concern me, we talked about geotechnical information being provided and rock removal, quantities for soil moving, that type of information that affects the construction and the duration of that construction. And I think that that's important information for the board to have. The test pit information has been provided, but there's soil documentation requirements in the BMP manual, and that information has not been provided. So I think we need to see that information so that we have an understanding. And I know that the municipality has asked for both sanitary and water studies with regards to capacity in Passaic Avenue and availability of water and water pressure. Again, that's something that's going to impact the overall design. So I think those are issues that I think really need to be considered so that we understand what the design ultimately is.
I'm pretty loud, so I'm gonna.
Just pull them, the mic's right there, pull it over.
Yeah, okay. So I want to make sure that I have your list correct. I know you said you had test pit information, but there was additional information that you needed. Can you just give me a little more detail on what you're looking for so we can make sure we get it to you?
I think it's detailed in our letter as
Okay.
to what the BMP asks for in terms of the testing. There's some, you know, the test pit information that we have is just log documentation. It doesn't give information. It's not signed and sealed information, and it includes rock information, but there's been no information provided as to the volume of rock removal, the volume of soil movement. I know overall the two sites were supposed to be balanced, but we have no idea what earth movement is anticipated. And I think that can be provided, because if it's balanced, then somebody's already done the calculations.
Right. So I did have a note about you looking for the soil movement information. I'm glad I asked the question, because I thought you had said that there was something associated with the test pits that you were also looking for beyond the soil movement, but maybe I may have misunderstood, because I am certainly in the deep end of the pool when it comes to technical engineering commentary here.
Then the rock removal, I think, is another item, and how that's going to be accomplished, because that affects quality of living for the adjacent residences. So I think those are things that we need to understand as a board in order to finalize any review we do on this application. And then I think the water and sewer studies, I'm back and forth as to whether those can be conditions of approval. Obviously, we get through the whole thing and find out that there's not water pressure, then, you know, that's gonna mean some sort of a system.
Right.
Some sort of a water tank, which may affect, you know, an open space lot. I don't know. But I think that's my concern. But is that something that can be done later, perhaps? I'm not certain. I'm not saying yes, I'm not saying no.
So that sounds like it might be a good item for further technical coordination.
Yep.
Yeah, I would think so.
Make sure I wrote it down. Okay. So I think we're clear on what your kind of big ticket items are that you consider to be things that couldn't be solved during resolution compliance, which is really helpful, I think, to us, because we had thought we were agreeing was sufficient. So I appreciate you telling us. Does it make sense to proceed with architecture at this point and see if we can get that done, since everybody's here?
believe architecture could be heard.
Yeah, I would,
Anything else with engineering or Mr. Peacher's report, I don't think we really should discuss it. I mean, as you look at his full report, I mean, I'm surprised you didn't table it to next month, to be quite honest with you.
well, again, frankly, this conversation's been quite fruitful
Yeah.
because we were like, we know, we agreed to comply, so
let me
it's
ask
been
you a question.
helpful.
When you agree to something, can you reflect the changes on the drawings?
So certainly
Because there's many things that you have agreed to along the last few meetings that it's becoming cumbersome, and if it's not on the drawings, some of them can get lost somewhere in translation here.
Mhm. So we can certainly reflect them on the plans. I mean, as I said, typically what we've seen is that Mr. Petrie's memo gets incorporated into a resolution and gets dealt with in compliance. But I understand the board's request, which is to incorporate them into the plans now. But that had been our understanding, was that it were things that we could, not that we were looking to shirk our responsibility. On the contrary, we considered them to be things we're required to do.
So if you do you have the renderings with you tonight to do the architectural?
we do.
And then we'll just stop after the architect. How's that sound?
Let's do architecture. I want to go through quickly Mr. Petrie's memo because there were some items that I think we may be able to, he had questions about how mail's going to work and stuff like that that we could cover if you want.
So Mr. Petrie's memo is 37 pages. Do
Mhm.
you want to go through them here, or do you want the professionals to go through them?
Well, my thought was there are some items that we can provide testimony on this evening. I wasn't going to go page by page, that are unrelated to these items that are more operational, for example. But
You could also respond to his memo.
all right, so why don't we do architecture?
Architecture it is.
Okay. Mr. Tiki.
Mr. Tiki, you've been sworn before, you understand that you're still under the same oath?
Yes, I
And
do.
nothing's changed with your licenses, your,
Right, that's correct.
thank you.
It's Stephen, Stephen, Tiki, Tietke.
Okay. So, Mr. Tiki, we had a few open items out of the October meeting that you were returning to address. The first was, I think you wanted to address the floor plan related to the single-family homes in the office area shown. Is that right?
That's correct, yes. So on the board here is, I believe should we mark this as an exhibit?
Has been,
It was.
this has been, Mr. King, this is submitted to the board previously. Do you want us to, yeah.
We have it with
Would
us.
you like us to mark it, or can we just?
What was
refer
it, was it A10 or A9?
Was Model 1 primary up. There were 3 11 by 17 What number is it?
Yeah, Model 1 primary up, it said.
Yeah, but so this was part of your
Part
plan?
of the previous submission.
October 30th.
No, 830, this one we have here, I have to put that on it. Small version, this here.
So its revised date is 10/30/25,
Right, that's correct.
and then it's Model 1 primary up?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so that's the document that was submitted as part of the application, so the
Correct.
board
Right.
should have that.
Yes.
And we did want to resubmit this because there was an error on the plan which referred to the flex room as an optional bedroom, and that is not what was intended. So we revised the tag to remove that reference.
So then it has to be submitted because it's different, right? That's
Well, that
different
that
now.
was submitted to the board
Correct.
10
The-
days before this
The
hearing.
updated plan was submitted.
Oh, okay.
Right. Okay. I think next, we had a request in October for the affordable unit floor plans, and we have those as well.
So again, this is a new drawing that was submitted on October 30th, 2025. And this is sheet A-3.0. Oh, is this one better? Thank you. This is sheet A-3.0, and it's entitled Typical Unit Floor Plans, Affordable Building dated 10/30/2025. And this was created in response to a request from the board members to see a layout of a typical one-bedroom, non-age restricted or age-restricted affordable unit. and then a typical 1, 2, and 3-bedroom, non-age restricted affordable unit. So as you'll see from the plans, we picked the most prevalent unit type in each of the buildings. And in each of these units, we offer an open concept kitchen, living, and dining area, a hall bath with a tub, and a dedicated in-unit laundry. And like I said, this first plan, unit type A, is typical of the age-restricted building. And then B, C, and D are typical of the 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom non-age restricted building.
Do you have a particular floor that these units will be on? The age restricted, non-age restricted?
They're interspersed throughout, so typically the units will stack. So this age-restricted 1-bedroom unit is typically occurring in the corners of the building.
Okay.
And then the non-age restricted 1-bedroom typically occurs in the bottom left-hand corner in stacks. This C-type unit occurs in the bottom left-hand corner of the building. And the D unit occurs in the top left-hand corner of the building in stacks.
Will the 1-bedrooms, non-age restricted units and age restricted units have the same amount of parking spaces? Will they have the same amount of parking spaces?
I can't hear you.
I know, could you just?
That's okay. Sure, take your time.
Sorry, I have to end it up.
Water?
It's going around.
That's okay, take your time. Do you want to get a glass of water?
Cough drop is making it worse.
Will the parking arrangements be different from the age-restricted, non-age restricted units?
I believe the RSIS requirements are the same for
Same,
both.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then finally, again, in response to a question from the board, we've created a rendering of the typical affordable buildings, the age-restricted building here and the non-age restricted building on the left-hand side. And as you can see, this view is taken from the parking area, and it captures the front of both of these buildings. And we've incorporated materials that are consistent with the ones that are used on the single families, which include horizontal siding and cultured stone and board and batten siding. What we've done in these buildings is emphasize the entrances by creating some plane breaks and taking the accent materials and carrying them up to the roof line and adding some gable details. We've also incorporated some metal roof accents over the entry areas to the buildings to really just emphasize those entrances. And the other thing we've done is picked 2 complementary siding colors to differentiate one building from the other. And then the continuing theme between the two is the stone. So the stone that's selected is the same for both buildings, and the board and batten color is the same. But then that siding color really differentiates between the two.
How many elevators would be in each unit, in each
The
building?
non-age restricted building does not have an elevator. It's a walk-up building. The age restricted building has 1 elevator in the center.
That's 3 floors?
This is 3 stories, yes.
So the age-restricted building will not have elevator,
Oh, no, the I'm sorry, the age restricted building will have an elevator.
age-restricted.
The non-age restricted building does not.
Just wonder if it was required, being that it's 3 stories.
No,
Not
no,
required.
it's actually not required by code. And I do a lot of market rate buildings as well that are walk-up 3-story.
How, just thinking off the top of my head, if someone needs an ambulance and a stretcher has to go up to the 3rd floor, how would they bring the stretcher down?
They carry them down the stair
Down the
towers.
steps?
And the code dictates the size of the stair towers to make sure that they're
Yeah.
navigable for
And
a
the size of the
stretcher.
elevator, to fit a stretcher, the one that does have the elevator.
The one that has an elevator, yes, that is required to accommodate the stretcher.
And just, Mr. Tiki, the rendering that you're showing here was also submitted to the board, correct?
It was,
Just for the
yes,
record? Yeah,
yes.
thank you.
Will you be able to address the question about the EV parking spaces that are required in the lot?
So that was
Yes.
one of the ones that our engineer was going to talk about, but the answer
Right.
is yes, they will be provided, and the answer is there'll be 10 EV spaces that are provided, which is what the law requires.
Thank you.
And on these apartments, will everyone have a marked or assigned, I guess the word is assigned parking spot per apartment? Or is it a free-for-all?
I don't believe they're assigned, but I don't know that for sure. No, they're not.
They're not. I'll repeat just because background noise. The parking spaces are
They're
not assigned.
Okay, and would you be opposed to assigning them?
Typically, the way it's handled is management first determines whether there's an issue requiring assignment. The reality of affordable units is typically you don't have too many vehicles per unit, just because it's affordable households that are renting the units. That being said, if to your point it becomes a free-for-all or parking's not available, at that point, the landlord can institute either assignment of parking spaces or restrictions in the lease to make sure that there aren't extra vehicles regularly parking at the site. It's one thing, of course, if somebody has guests over. It's another thing if they're parking 6 vehicles associated with one apartment.
But what's the problem with assigning, what is it, one car per apartment? How does the parking work? I don't remember the specifics, but whether it's affordable or not, they're gonna have a car.
So I think that the thought is that having the flexibility is nice. So if somebody's at work and somebody else is having a friend over, you have the extra space. And so it makes parking more available as opposed to assigning it, because it allows potentially the parking space to do double duty as a guest space when it's not being used by a resident.
Well, you do provide guest spaces, don't you?
Correct. It's factored into the residential site improvement standards already. The idea is that the flexibility is nice to have.
But if I'm age-restricted apartment, I don't wanna have to park across the parking lot and have to walk over. The age-restricted, it should be closer, as of course handicap would be.
Right.
Would be.
Right.
But, you know, now you're gonna factor in EV spaces somewhere. And then, again, like I said, age-restricted, you gotta get, should be. We had this in another situation in a building like that, multifamily building, where we felt that, as the board, that it was necessary to give specific spaces closer to the building that was age-restricted.
At the least, it was one space per
One,
Correct.
yeah, we
Unit.
gave them one per
Right.
unit.
assigned. So there can be no question that that unit has one space.
I follow.
And it
what you're saying.
also,
Yeah.
there's another situation here that rears its ugly head, which has happened in town, where, yep, everybody, it's a free-for-all, you get whatever space you want, and I'm married, I have a car, my wife has a car. Now I'm taking 2 spots, now this person can't find a spot. Then we got 3 cars, and all of a sudden, the board, the association is renting spaces. I don't want to go down that road again because my phone rang forever. Okay, so I would like to see every apartment have at least one assigned space. I don't think it's an issue. And then the visitor parking is where it is. The second car, if you have one, it is where it is. But everybody should have one assigned space that they can come home and not have to worry about riding around looking for an empty parking space. And like the councilman said, somebody who's age restricted, you only have so many handicap spots, okay? So now you got age restricted people. Almost everybody's got a handicap placard, okay? So now that poor person has got to carry their groceries from all the way across the lot. It's just not right. I really
So,
would like to see assigned spots.
On that vein, the assigned spots should be
The closest, I'm
adjacent
assuming,
to,
yeah.
as close as possible to the units.
Yep, I understand the intent. We'll speak with the landlord and we'll have an answer for you on that. There were some other commentary from Mr. Petrie's memo that dealt with the apartment buildings, and I thought it would make sense to go through those with Mr. Tiki. So one of them was with regard to how mail is going to be handled. Can you address that, please?
Sure. So in the age-restricted building, which is this building here, mail is delivered inside the vestibule. So in the vestibule is an area for mailboxes. And what we've determined is that opposite where the mailboxes are located in that interior vestibule, we'll locate an area of shelving for parcel delivery as well. In the non-age restricted buildings, or building.
Which are to the left
To
on
the
the
left,
sheet, correct?
yes. There are two entrances, and at each entrance, there are mailboxes built into these alcoves underneath the cover before the entry door. And what we plan to do to address the question about parcel delivery is in the opposite alcove on this side, provide a locker where parcels can be delivered for residents to then come pick up.
So that was comment 5F in
Right.
Mr. Petrie's memo.
I'm sorry,
Sure.
where was it?
It was comment 5F as in Frank in Mr. Petrie's memo.
What page are you on?
Oh, hang on, I can
think
tell
it's
you.
8.
5F.
Is it sheet?
Hold on.
Oh, okay, thank you.
And then stick with us because we're staying in that same section. So comment G was asking about the anticipated location of mechanical equipment for the apartment buildings. Could you touch on that as well, please?
Sure, there will be air conditioning condensers required for the units, and those will be located at the sides and the rears of the building and screened from view with landscaping.
Comment H is asking about amenities for the apartment buildings, and that was testified to in September, and the explanation provided then is that there are not amenities for the apartments. And then question I in the same section asks who will own, operate, and manage the apartment buildings, and that will be Woodmont.
Can we go back to H for just a hot second?
Sure.
Because I thought you said that the Fairfield Apartments would utilize the North Caldwell amenities at that meeting.
We
Was I
did not. We
mistaken?
checked the transcript.
Okay.
Yep,
There's no amenities provided.
correct.
Are these buildings sprinkled?
Yes.
Where would the fire department connection be?
That'll be determined, but the sprinkler room on this building is on this side, and I believe on this building it's on this side, so I would imagine it would be in that vicinity.
So Steve, just for the record, for the folks who, if they ever have to read the transcript later, this side for the age-restricted building is the far right-hand side of that
Yes.
building. And this side for the fire department connection on the non-age-restricted building is
Is the right side elevation as well.
of the non-age-restricted
And
building.
how close is the closest fire hydrant to those locations?
That I'm not sure because I'm,
Are you
So-
going to eliminate any parking spots where the fire department connection will be so the fire department could pull hose to the fire department connection?
I'm sorry, Mr.
Are you
Chairman.
going to
can-
eliminate any parking spaces so the fire department could pull hose to the fire department connection?
We don't expect that any fire parking spaces will need to be eliminated, and I think we testified in September that we were agreeing to coordinate with the fire department to locate the hydrants as they request.
So if you need to, will that affect your number of parking spaces? If they ask you to eliminate two, one for each building?
That would be a question for the engineer. Let me make a note so I make sure we cover it.
Are the apartment buildings contributory to the HOA?
Meaning, do they have to pay a fee to the HOA? Is that the question?
That is the question, yes.
No. They just pay rent to their landlord.
Okay, so the property owner will not have to contribute towards roadway improvements and
Oh, in terms
those-
of will the landlord, the
Yes,
owner of the building?
that's what I meant.
I'm sorry, I
I
misunderstood your
apologize.
question. So, but let's do it both ways because it'll help to be clear. So if you're a tenant in one of the affordable buildings, you are not obligated to pay into the HOA in addition to paying your rent. So that's baseline number one. I believe there will be an agreement as between the owners of the different parcels, meaning the HOA association and the owner of the affordable parcel, to deal with contribution associated with the cost of maintaining roads and snow plowing and so on.
Utilities.
Yes, correct. But wait, there was more we needed to cover.
Right.
Mr. Petrie, you also had a question in your memo, and this is letter J, asking about how waste and trash will be handled. Can you explain that, Mr. Petrie?
Sure. The trash will be taken by the residents either down, the stairs or the elevator in the non-age, or the age-restricted building, and brought out to a dumpster at grade.
So the person who lives on the third floor in the building has to carry their trash down the stairs outside to a dumpster?
Yes.
Really?
That's correct, yes.
These are some buildings.
And is pretty typical in your experience,
is.
correct,
Well, I
Mr.
don't-
Tiki?
No, it's
Yeah.
not pretty typical, because my mother-in-law lives in one. They have a trash chute. Yeah, they don't, there's nobody walking down the stairs and carrying garbage out.
ends up-
Especially,
I'm gonna be quite honest
especially
with
in an
you,
age-restricted building.
It ends up sitting in the hallway.
I mean, you gotta be kidding me.
Age restricted has an elevator, James.
Oh, big deal. You get on the elevator, then you gotta go outside
know.
and
You
throw your
drip-
garbage out?
You drip your garbage all the way.
This is unbelievable. It really is.
Again, I will tell you, it's very typical, particularly for affordable
Maybe in
buildings.
Woodmont, but this is crazy. This is crazy to have to do that. That just, in this day and age, you're designing the buildings, you couldn't design a trash chute?
Well, with the trash chute then comes a trash room,
Correct.
and comes personnel that have to then manage taking the
Okay,
garbage out
but you're
from the
building,
trash
you're
room.
building brand-new, beautiful apartments supposedly, so wouldn't you-
Affordable apartments that can't be subject to cost-generative measures.
Affordable apartments.
They are
They're not
affordable
all
apartments.
affordable apartments.
They are
There's-
all affordable
yes.
apartments.
There's a mixture here.
They're not,
Oh, they're all
sir.
affordable.
They're all affordable apartments.
Okay, even still, because they're affordable, they have to carry their garbage out? That's like, I mean, I'm not gonna use the word, but you're basically telling me that's what it is.
I'm telling you, in
Because they're
the,
affordable, we don't have to do that. They'll carry their own garbage out, don't worry about it. Okay.
So what happens in these type of homes, or these type of apartments, because I do this sometimes for a living, the tenants end up leaving the garbage out in the hallway, because they take their garbage, they wrap it up, leave it in the hallway, and then the next tenant leaves it out in the hallway. Then we got a garbage problem, and you get infestation of bugs and insects, and that's when it becomes a little messy. I mean, a garbage chute would be ideal
I don't get it.
to stop, all of that. And it becomes a hazard in the hall, becomes a fire hazard, it becomes an insect problem, because they wait until they go to their car to take out their garbage. They don't leave it, they don't say, oh, well, let me take out the garbage and I'm gonna go out in another half hour.
well, I
They
mean,
put
if
it in the hallway.
if you're leaving your garbage in the hallway, it is a lease violation. So that's another way of dealing with
Yeah,
it, which
Okay.
is typically
So
how
what-
it's
but
handled.
But you know what, there's no personnel, so what are you gonna do? Who's gonna come by, the police? You don't have any. You have no personnel, you told me.
What
And you
I
can't
said
really-
is that there's a distinction, Mr. Gasparini. I think you're putting words in my mouth respectfully. What I said is, and we provided testimony on this in September as well, that the landlord will have personnel on site, but that's different than having somebody wheel out the trash and having a dedicated trash room to do it. Those are
Well,
different
why? If
jobs.
he has personnel on site, I can't imagine what they'll be doing all day long, so they can't take the trash out, have a trash room?
So that would, again, require a redesign of the building, and may require, we can take a look at it, but I'm not sure what can be accomplished.
And obviously the trash dumpsters are a distance, a bit up from the building.
So those are shown on the
On
site
one of the
plans, and we can put,
plans.
they're proximate, but,
Inclement weather, these people are expected to go and do that.
And they're enclosed, so they gotta struggle with the gate to open it, then they gotta struggle with the lid to open it. It makes no sense to me. It really doesn't.
sure, we have someone from the landlord here who can explain it more if you'd like.
Sir, if you could raise your right hand. You swear or affirm testimony you're about to give before the board is true self you got?
I do.
And for the record, can you state and spell your name?
Sure, I'm Steve Santola. I'm the Executive Vice President and General Counsel at Woodmont Properties. We own, manage, and develop between 3,000 and 4,000 apartments in New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania.
And you're fully familiar with the operation?
Fully familiar with the operation. This is what's known as a garden-style building. We build two different styles of buildings. We have downtown.
Just for the record, he's been sworn in. His testimony is as a fact witness, as an operator of these buildings.
That's correct. And I'm referring to what's marked as A13. So this is what's known as a garden-style building that we have built literally thousands of units in these buildings. Not one of them has a garbage chute. Whether we get $4,000 a month in West Windsor or whether we get $1,200 a month at an affordable building, in some buildings we provide a service where people can put their garbage in the hallway and they pay extra for that. You can't do that with the affordable resident, so you can't charge them. So they take their garbage downstairs and they put it into the dumpster. We have in downtown buildings where you have a core of a building and the HVACs and all of it's very different, then we oftentimes will provide a trash chute. Usually they're mixed-use buildings, so the garbage goes down and it goes in with the retail at the base. But I just want to make clear, we're not putting a burden on an affordable resident here that isn't the way that most of these communities operate. I will grant you that certain types of buildings with cores have garbage chutes, but it's more the exception than the rule in this style of building. And we will locate the dumpsters as conveniently as we possibly can. I understand the fact that an active adult or a senior taking their garbage down, is a little bit more cumbersome than the normal person, the younger person, but that's the way the building operates. And just on the parking, before I sit back down and shut up, the problem, and we don't have assigned parking at any of our communities anywhere. We had to do it in one community in South Jersey because during COVID, too many people were staying home and it was causing a problem, and we went to an assigned parking with stickers. And that was a management decision. But the problem that you run into is if you have the best spot or the second or third best spot and you go away for 2 weeks, that spot sits absolutely empty for a couple of weeks. If your car is broken or down for whatever period of time, plus if you happen to get a lousier spot further from the door, you're never going to get a better spot when you come home, right? You're always going to be the furthest person away from the senior front door or from the market rate front door. So we find from a management perspective, and if we want to assign one spot to each unit, we will do that. But that is not, we have Woodmont management employees, 78 people. This is what they do every single day, and they don't assign parking intentionally. So, we can talk about this when resolution time comes. Like I said, we'd be happy if the board's preference and they think that, in this instance it's required, we will do that. But we typically don't do that. And I can tell you, unless you have a garage setting, most property managers do not assign parking space.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the property manager?
The last item that was related to all of this in Mr. Petrie's memo was item K, which was regarding how move-in and move-out will work. Mr. Tiki, do you want to cover that as well?
Yeah, I can try. Typically, I think the biggest push for move-in would be, at lease-up. And I think what the applicant has found is that as time goes on, move-ins become much less frequent, and they're usually manageable by the management staff to coordinate, move-in and move-out and make sure that parking is available.
And my understanding is that move-in and move-out is coordinated with management so that, for example, you don't have multiple people moving in at the same time impacting parking, and instead it's scheduled to make sure that there's as little impact as possible to the parking lot function.
Right.
Okay, that was all I had for Mr. Tiki to cover, but we're happy to have him answer other questions.
Any questions from the board?
No, other than I think there should be assigned parking.
Questions for the public?
Any questions from the public for the architect? Seeing none?
Were there any renderings done from the adjacent properties based upon the meeting that we had in the field?
So I believe Mr. Cruz has those.
Okay.
And we were intending to show them this evening. Shall we transition to Mr. Cruz?
Transition, Mr. Cruz.
Okay.
And Mr. Cruz, just for the record, you've been sworn prior and also earlier today, and you're still under oath.
Mr. Cruz, before you sit down, could I ask a question? Is that the same rendering there? You have two of them?
Yes, they're both the same.
Okay, can you put that on that easel so that Sterling Green could see it, please?
And before you get rolling, you need to respond to Mr. King's question that you understand you're still under oath.
Yes, sorry, I thought,
and-
yes,
And your licenses haven't changed, just so we have that on the record.
that's correct.
Okay,
Still valid.
all right. Let me know when you're situated.
Sorry.
It's okay.
My little pointer.
Okay. So, yeah, that makes more sense over there. Okay, so Mr. Petrie, I think you provided us with the perfect transition because the first thing that we wanted to talk about with Mr. Cruz was, in fact, that Mr. Cruz, you did have a meeting with folks at Sterling Green and you extensively revised the plans. As part of that, you did prepare views from Sterling Green showing what the plans incorporating those revisions, what it would look like from Sterling Green. So why don't you walk the board and the public through what those are? And I think we need to mark these.
Yes.
And I believe we're up to A11.
So there's going to be 7 views, so it'll be A11A through, should we keep-
18? Or do you want to do them all as one exhibit?
Are they, if they're singular, then do each one, give them a different number, but if it's attached as a one group, you could do it as one packet.
Yeah, they're all one packet. There's 7 views in one packet.
Okay, so we'll call all the views A11, and then we'll just, as you go through each sheet, let's
How
explain,
many
for example,
sheets
this is
How
view
many
1.
sheets are there in A?
There's, 11 has 7 sheets for 7 different views.
Mark that 7 sheets, so. Thank you.
All right,
Okay.
so tell us what we're looking at here with A11, please.
So A11 includes renderings of the views from the properties surrounding the western border, mainly Sterling Green and Lot 11, which we heard at the last meeting were concerned about the proximity of walls, view shed, and how things were going to align along the common property boundary. We rendered 7 different views, and I'll go through each one on each different sheet, starting with view number 1, which is basically taken from the rear of Lot 11, looking towards the now revised grading and home situation and layout that we had agreed to work on and is included in the new plans that were presented to the board. You'll see this essentially is the view shed from, again, the arrow, if you look to the lower right, that's the vantage point that's taking from the rear of Lot 11 into the development, looking basically northward into the development. And this is the overall rendering with vegetation. The walls now have been reduced, and there's only walls located along the roadway. Those walls have been reduced to maximum of 7 feet high, 2-tiered walls. They've been removed from the proximity next to Lot 11, and also the one home that we had mentioned earlier, Lot 58 has been relocated away to provide more space and distance between Lot 11 and the interior of the development.
Is Lot 11 part of Sterling Green or no?
Lot 11 is independent. That is not part of Sterling Green.
It's not part of Sterling Green. Okay.
So I will flip to view 2.
He said it was the adjacent. Not
So moving on to the second sheet of Exhibit A11, this is view number 2. Now, this is starting from the rear of the Sterling Green development, taken in proximity to the rear deck area of the individual townhome units, starting basically at the rear of 69 Schindler Way, which is basically in the, let's say, southwestern corner of the Sterling Green development, and looking inward again towards the development. In this area where we had tiered walls before, and we heard were concerned, those were removed and now are replaced with grading. And also in that area, we had removed lot 131 or 130 and moved that interior to the development to provide a greater distance between the back-to-back homes and the interior development.
130 and 131 are gonna be vacant? You said you removed them?
Just move, we moved. We moved the 2 units at the corners, 58 and 131. We moved those away and interior to development further inward. So that is view number 2. As we move on to sheet 3. Which is view 3. That continues down in the building with 69 Schindler Way, going further northward. And that also includes, again, this view from the rear of the deck property, looking more internal towards the proposed homes. And the grading, again, all the walls have been removed in that area, and now we're just showing the actual proposed grading that's been done so that there's no tiered walls or any walls in proximity to those homes and those units in Sterling Green. And again, the closest here for these units, the closest distance roughly between the new unit and the existing townhome unit is approximately 180 feet.
Mr. Cruz, those renderings, are those existing trees there?
This is a mix. Most of the views in view 3 are existing vegetation. We're getting closer to where there is an existing mature buffer between both developments. And then beyond that, there is also proposed landscaping. As we move through views 3, and as you'll see in the next consecutive views, we're proposing a 20-foot landscape buffer between the common property boundary.
Yeah, just for clarification, those are mature trees that are there now that we're looking at?
Yes, these trees here are renderings of the mature vegetation that is there.
Thank you.
Currently.
And they're currently there.
Yes, correct. The common property boundary between the two, there exists the mature vegetation from majority of it, and half of that sits on the Sterling Green property, or roughly half, which we're not be able to touch because it's not on our property. So that's going to remain. And then what we're going to also propose, as you see with the additional landscaping along the border, the 20-foot strip would be planted with mature vegetation at the landscape plans have shown, and also we would supplement any additional vegetation to create a visual buffer.
And when we were out there walking that property with Sterling Green and the professionals, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, we talked about the Sterling Green owning some of it and Toll Brothers owning the rest of it. And correct me if I'm wrong, did we not talk about if Sterling Green gave you the go-ahead to clean it all up and landscape it? Did I get that wrong? Am I thinking wrong on that? Was that discussed? I thought it was. That some of that area, if you were given permission to go onto their property and, you know, get rid of some of the garbage that's there and enhance it, I believe we did talk about that while we were out there. Maybe not with you, but I thought we did with, yeah, no, I know.
So, yeah.
That's okay, they're not
it's
giving
okay.
testimony.
Yeah. So,
Hold on, okay? Everybody will get a chance to come up in a little while. Let them just finish their testimony. But I'm just asking the question because you were out there too. I believe we talked about that, correct? We
So,
did. Okay.
Say, Mr. Right, I was not there, but my
No, 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 you-
understanding
no,
is
I
that
was- I wasn't looking at
it
you.
did come up. And I think that was, my understanding is that's sort of the beginning of the discussion, before the enhanced 20 feet on the toll side was discussed. But that said, if Sterling Green would agree to give us permission, we would do the cleanup.
Okay.
Okay, so that's view 3. Going to the next sheet is view 4. That's as you continue further, again, northward. This now getting over closer from 69 3 to 61, the rear area of 61 Schindler Way. Again, looking interior development. As you can see here, also no walls, just grading to make up the grade differential between the rear of the Sterling Green property and the interior of the development.
And could you just, so that the people from Sterling Green know, the 20-foot buffer that you're planting, what are you planting in there, evergreens?
Yeah, there'll be a mixture of evergreens and also deciduous trees, but mainly more evergreens for provide year-round screening.
Okay.
Moving onward to view 5, this is getting closer now to the end of the building with 63 Schindler Way, the northern end. As you can see, some of that's where some of the screening that's existing dies down, that scrub area that we were looking at. So there is a little bit more visibility of the homes that are being proposed. But again, the distance here is growing greater, and also no walls, the grading is lower, and also takes mature vegetation. There is some mature vegetation that remains, and also we'll be proposing the new plantings in that 20-foot area that I discussed.
So what we're looking at now will be screened so that we're not seeing those houses as predominantly as we are when you're done with your plantings?
The plantings are included. This right here is proposed plantings within that 20 feet. Obviously, they're not mature yet, so as they grow, the screening will increase and create a better visual buffer.
So what size what is that in, what kind of evergreen is that to the left there, the smaller one that you,
Oh,
right there? Yeah.
Those are typically, spruces or pines and planted at 6 to 8 foot height.
And is it possible to put a larger, in areas like, not the whole thing, but in areas like that where it's more sparse, is it possible to put more mature evergreens in those areas to help it along?
We could look at more mature, but there's also availability and heights. That 12 to 14 is kind of a maximum height that you can normally get from a nursery. So we can look into seeing what species are typically available in this area and try to help supplement that with a higher height
Okay.
installation.
Thank you.
Next view 6, as again continues move down. This is in the area 53 Schindler Way at the rear, that area. This is where the existing vegetation and buffering exists again and is not in the open area, and then it's supplemented behind with the additional landscape buffer in the 20 feet from our toll property inward. Again, you can see there's no walls, they've been removed, and the grading is now basically just natural lawn at a typical slope. And then lastly, view 7, this is from the rear of 47 Schindler Way. This is as you get to the end of the units that have the rear-to-rear orientation. And this is looking out internal to the development. Again, you'll see some existing mature vegetation, the proposed landscape buffering along the common property boundary. And as you roll up, you also see some wood fence. That's the limitation of the fencing for the proposed bioretention area.
Behind those trees is a proposed retention bay.
That's the proposed bioretention area, correct?
For now.
That was our view 7, right?
Yes, that's the final view, sorry.
Yeah, okay.
So do we have any questions about the screening and Sterling Green?
I guess there's gonna be a landscape plan, correct?
Yes.
And that'll be sent to the planner to review?
Yes, the landscape plan with this proposed buffering was included in the
Okay. And
recent submission.
There's different sizes, there's, you know, some of these screenings, the newer plantings will be a larger variety or a variety that grows a lot
With the
quicker.
more open areas, I think it's obvious you need, you know, a little bit taller, bigger plantings.
Yep. So we hear you on that. So what's depicted here is on the landscape plan that was submitted, but then hearing the
You'll
mayor's
aug-
comments and Mr. Gasparini's
Right.
comments,
You'll
we'll have
augment
to.
that with the taller.
Right, and it may be something too where it may make sense to agree to work together when we're in the field, because it may be that we want to deal with the existing the conditions and say, we need a big tree over here. So it may be something where we have ongoing coordination going forward to make sure that we're getting them in the tall trees in the right spots.
Yes, and also, if Sterling Green does agree to allow you to clean up that area, you may want to do bigger things anyway, because you may be removing stuff that leaves a gap. So
Right.
I agree. It's something that should really be looked at the time in the field, but you have agreed to deal with the size differentials based on the vision.
Yeah, so my suggestion would be we can come up with some suggestions for now to deal with the more sparse areas, and then we can deal with it on kind of a real-life basis when we
Right.
have the existing conditions as well.
Great, thank you.
So Jim, are they agreeing to replace some of the shrubs on the Sterling Green side if they clean
That's
it up?
something they have to talk to Sterling Green about. We talked about it out there, but that's something they would have to discuss with the Sterling Green
Right,
if they
and so
are.
what we had said, Mr. Chairman, is, my understanding is that there was a question as to if Sterling Green were to permit us, my understanding is there's some like debris and stuff that's
Yeah.
in the buffer, and we would agree to certainly remove that while we're out there anyway, if they would like us to. So we would agree to do that.
Would you
again, if
agree
they-
to replace it with something if you had to remove a shrub or if you had to remove a tree
I mean, so.
on the Sterling Green
Right,
property?
we should not be removing any of their landscaping as part of the cleanup effort. I can't imagine that would occur, but if we remove their landscaping,
Yeah,
we would replace it.
I don't think they were talking about having trees removed or anything, but there's a lot of low growth of garbage out there that
Yeah.
really should be cleaned up for both sides. It'll be a much
course.
more aesthetically
Yeah.
pleasing
Understood.
area.
And just make sure we limit that. There are freshwater wetlands along the border. We
Right.
can do that where there's not freshwater wetlands.
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
Okay, so I know we're not talking in depth about stormwater. Mr. Cruz, as part of these revisions, do you just want to briefly touch on the relocation of the basin, just so people understand the change that's proposed?
Before we
Yeah.
leave this, I think that the board needs to understand, and I think the neighbors need to understand as well, the amount of effort that went into making these modifications. Roads were redesigned and dropped to lower grades. A lot of the fill that was originally planned to be placed there is no longer being placed there, and that's how Mr. Cruz was able to eliminate these walls and bring these buildings down. I think if Mr. Cruz wanted to prove what a hero he was, he would have showed the old design in these as well as the new design. But I can tell you that from our perspective, the modifications that were made here, and this is where the bulk of the modifications that went into the plans were made, these were substantial modifications, and they were really, I think, really good for the neighbors, in
And-
my opinion.
We appreciate that, Mr. Petrie, and
Big improvement of
Be-
the original plan.
we understood what a priority it was for the board and the public when we were in our September meeting, which is why we wanted to dedicate so much of our efforts between now and then to addressing these issues, because we understood them to be the most sensitive issues. So we're pleased that you recognize that effort. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Do you want to touch briefly on the basin relocation without getting into the stormwater calculations, just so everyone
Yeah,
knows the changes?
As part of this, I'll just go into a brief discussion on the bioretention area that is also located. There was a discussion prior that obviously the grading started right at the property line and the berm extended up from that point. As we discussed going through the views, we've now moved any grading to be 20 feet off of the property line. So there's natural grade that exists from the property, common property boundary interior to our development. That, again, this now 20-foot will be planted heavily with mature screening. After that 20 feet, then the grading for the bioretention area will start. And the grading will be, as we talked about, 3 to 1. The berm height in the area that we were looking at before, we've reduced. We've gotten that down to about 7 feet instead of the 12 feet we talked about before. And then we've also located walls on the interior of the basin so they're not visible to help with any view shed. That's why when you looked at the last view, view 7, you only saw basically a natural grassed area leading up to fencing on the top, which you would see in any existing or any proposed type typical stormwater basin.
Thank you. Another item that I wanted to touch on that came up in September was with regard to, there was a question about impervious coverage and how we were going to deal with future improvements if homeowners wanted to make them to their homes. So, Mr. Cruz, my understanding is that the maximum square foot coverage that a unit owner could have if they went with the biggest possible unit and the biggest possible patio or porch is a total of 3,062 square feet. Is that right?
That's correct.
And my understanding is that your stormwater management system has been designed assuming the 3,062 square feet for each of the homes. Is that right?
That's correct.
So our proposal would be that our homeowner association documents would place a limit on each of the units such that they could not expand beyond that 3,062 square feet. Any modification that anybody wants to make has to go through the homeowner association architectural committee, but they wouldn't be able to be approved if they were exceeding that 3,062 because of the restriction in the homeowners association. And then, of course, there are some improvements that would also have to come to the board, but we would be at least a line of defense in terms of them trying to any attempt to exceed that amount. So that would be our proposal for how to handle that issue.
And what is the average square footage? Let's start with the smallest home. You're telling me
Is that, do we
you're-
need to go back to the
Sure,
architect
yeah,
for
sure.
that?
You're telling me that
Yeah.
you know, 3,062 is maxed out.
Correct.
Okay. So that's your largest model with
That includes the driveway, this access sidewalk, and 400 square foot of patio. off
there's the answer I was
Yes.
looking for. So 400 square foot of patio.
Right,
And
potentially.
what is the
400.
overall size of the lot?
The overall, the smallest size lot, which is
Well,
a typical,
the lot that this would go on.
6,050 is your typical lot size. Obviously, you'll get some larger lots as you go around bends and curves where it expands out and you have radial property lines.
So then there is a potential for someone to come in and want to do whatever they want to do once they buy the home. And what is the stopgap for that?
So we would say they're maxed out at the 3,062.
And that's it? They can't,
That's it. They can't go more than that.
there's no appeal, there's no anything?
Correct. The homeowners association documents would prohibit any expansion beyond that, and the architectural
be a-
committee would reject any
And that would be a
application.
condition also in the resolution, correct?
That would be our expectation, yeah.
Okay, and the smallest home, what's the footprint on that? And is that on the same size lot?
Well, the smallest home will be on the same lot because that would
They're
be
all
off.
6,050?
The smallest lot is 6,050. That's basically
Oh.
the minimum lot size.
Okay,
And then they could potentially get larger in different areas. They're not all, they're not, it's not cookie cutter where they're all 6,050, but the majority of them are cut into that size where they're 6,050.
okay. So the home, I guess, is what we need, because if it's 6,050, what size would the home be with the 400 square foot patio?
Jay, the largest footprint is 400, has the 400 square feet, the driveway, the sidewalk, the largest. Right. So anything below that, smaller in footprint,
Yeah.
is gonna have extra impervious unused. Yeah, I'm-
So
So,
the smaller the
But
home,
you-
the,
I got that. The home's gonna be smaller, I understand that. The patio may be smaller,
but
but
the
there's a
patio, but the patio may
potential-
also be larger.
but there's a potential to expand, correct, on a smaller home?
We are gonna put in our bylaw, unless it changes during resolution compliance or some other thing between now and when the master deed and
Here,
the
I
public
have it.
offering statement is recorded. And all of those would be approved by the town's attorney before they get submitted to the DCA.
Mhm.
But our standard will be, you can have no more than 3,062 square feet of impervious coverage on any lot in the community, regardless of your home site, the footprint. So we are including 400 square feet of additional impervious that can be added either through Toll Brothers in the form of an addition or a deck, or later on through what they want to do, subject to the homeowner rules and township zoning.
So on
We're
this,
capping it at 400
Let me,
square
let me
feet.
just
So
pause
on
so the
this-
court reporter can take down who's talking. So that was Mr. Peck, who was previously sworn, just so that we can have a clean record. I'm sorry to
so on the
interrupt.
smallest home footprint, going on a 3,062 max, would that person be able to build a house, have a patio, and put a pool in?
No,
So there won't be any, there will be not enough, there will not be enough area left over for.
I believe we testified previously that there won't be pools permitted here regardless of any discussion we have about impervious coverage
Okay.
down the road. Our assertion to make everything manageable from the homeowner association's position and from the township not to have the burden of worrying about whether we're approaching the limit or going over or whatever, as it relates to what's permitted under the stormwater calculations, is that every homeowner will understand before they purchase a home that the maximum square footage on that home site is 3,062 square feet, regardless of if that home site is 6,050 square feet or 7,250 square feet.
Okay.
That's what they're capped at, and they will understand that before they purchase. And that is not unusual throughout what we do, given the new stormwater regs in this state.
And there will also be a provision saying there will be no pools above ground or in ground?
We have regulations that we set forth in the HOA for clotheslines, pools, all sorts of things that most people would find deleterious to value. And those would be, again, reviewed by the town attorney before they get set forth in the DCA docs.
Okay, great, thank you.
I'm moving on from the impervious coverage restrictions. Everybody ready to go? Okay. There was also a question as to what the phasing of construction would look like and I know we talked about this a little bit at the outset, particularly with regard to the stormwater management, but I think that there was a request for more detail on what would be done when and what the timing associated with that would be. So Mr. Cruz, can you walk us through what the expected phasing of the construction process will be, please?
Right, and we touched on this a little bit earlier about, obviously, the phases. The project's proposed to be developed in 3 phases. The first phase is where the bulk of your initial construction activity will occur. It basically will come in and start with soil erosion, sediment control measures, silt fence, perimeter guards, and the like in correspondence with your soil erosion approval. Then also, eventually, after that is set, you'll start doing your clearing and your grubbing, and also work on a little bit of manipulation of this topsoil, stripping of soil in areas so that you can get ready to then flow into installing your stormwater management features, the basins and the bioretention areas that we talked about before. In some of that time frame, there'll be some, like we talked about, there'll be some minimal rock blasting as development moves through installation of the stormwater measures. And then once that's taken care of, we'll work in progress, and then we'll continue to work on installation of sanitary sewer and storm sewer utilities, obviously to increase the capture of any stormwater going to the basins that would already have been installed. Some blasting may be occurring there as well due to depths of utilities and where the rock outcropping will potentially be. And as you move through that, then after, there'll be curbing installed, water and the continuous sewer structure will be installed for the roadways. And then finally, as we get closer to that utility work being done, there'll be pavement installed, and then move on to the construction of housing in phases 1.
So let me pause you.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Cruz, that's kind of like the first phase of site work on the property. And about how long do you expect that first phase of work to be done?
That would roughly take between 5 to 7 months for that first phase to get set up.
And just, this may be confusing because we talked about phasing before in terms of building the homes. This is phases prior to the homes being built. This is really just the site work that has to go in to get ready before you can build any homes. Is that right?
And do you have proposed construction hours?
And you mean in terms of when work will be done on site? So certainly we would comply with your ordinance with respect to noise, et cetera. But I'm not sure that we have gone beyond making sure that we would comply with your ordinance at this point.
But you will, of course, abide by whatever ordinance we have?
Certainly.
And the 5 to 7 months of this infrastructure build-out, is that in conjunction with North Caldwell, or is that separate from North Caldwell?
That would most likely be in conjunction with North Caldwell, because that initial phase that we talked about would also include the stormwater measures at the border between North Caldwell and Fairfield to counter their flow and capture their flow before it flows further down into Fairfield portion.
So in a perfect world, at the end of 7 months, the roadways would be in on both developments?
Portions of the roadways. It's not the entire roadway system, but just the portions of the roadways for phase one and where the stormwater infrastructure and the sanitary and water flow through.
Okay.
All right.
In your entirety of your preparation phase, you're not using the bridge for construction, is that construction vehicles?
Correct. Old Mill Road Bridge will not be used for construction. The proposal is for the construction vehicles to come in through the main entrance to the golf course. And then that's where we have a temporary construction access between both developments, just used for construction when we do overall initial phasing and installation of the utilities and the stormwater I mentioned. And then as that work is done between both developments, that temporary construction access goes away and it just becomes utility access for the sewer connection between the communities.
Is I'm not sure if I read it somewhere, the emergency access road going to be used for construction vehicles?
No, it's not intended to be. No,
Just the Old Mill?
No,
not Old Mill either.
North Caldwell.
Main entrance.
Correct.
Yes, that's what I meant.
Correct, right, that was me pointing to the main entrance in case you couldn't tell. Yes, you're correct, the main entrance. All right, I'm moving to phase two of site work. Can you explain to us what would be entailed there?
Sure. Since again, phase one includes most of the infrastructure work for stormwater management. Phase one is done. Now we're moving into phase two. We continue with stormwater infrastructure installation in that phase, which is further uphill, let's say, with small scale bioretention areas, stormwater piping. Then you'll also be doing some topsoil stripping and preparation there. Also inclusive of that second phase would be any blasting necessary to accommodate the grading in that phase. And as you go through the rest, we get back into the same things we talked about for phase one, installing sanitary sewer, continuing with the water main distribution system, curbing, and then paving at the end.
And how long do you expect that portion of the work to take?
So phase two, approximately with the size and the amount of units, about 12 months.
Got it. And just obviously, these times are somewhat approximate because it'll depend on weather and availability of materials and workforce and that kind of thing. But we wanted to at least give everybody an idea of what we're expecting. And then can you tell us what would happen in the next phase?
Right, and then in the next phase, not to sound redundant, but it's similar to phase two. You kind of follow the same path where you get into that phase, you install the remaining stormwater management bioretention areas if there are any left in phase three. The storm sewer gets installed. You also then continue to remove topsoil in that phase and stripping. Then continue your stormwater infrastructure, your sanitary infrastructure, your water main extensions. Again, there may be some rock blasting in that area to accommodate the proposed grading for those utility installations, and then continue on with finishing up your curbing and your road paving, and that takes you through phase three. And that already ahead of me, Mike. That would be about 16 months for the final phase.
You're doing my job for me. All right, so that just, I'm moving away from construction phasing, but Mr. Chairman, it looks like you have a question.
When you're at phase three, are the homes going to be put up at that point, or no? That's not when the foundations will be put in and all of that?
At phase
Individual lots.
Yeah, so phase three will be working, as you're working on the utility infrastructure and everything I mentioned, phase three, home construction will be only ongoing in the earlier phases, phase one.
So as you do the utilities, you're gonna be putting homes up, and then you're gonna get to the next phase and do the same thing.
Correct.
Do you start at the end of the property, or start at the beginning of the property for the phases?
The phases work inward from Old Mill Road, and then also going to wrap around obviously, the common border between the Sterling Green residents in that area and our bottom, because that's where all the work needs to happen first. So that kind of comes in from Old Mill and follows that common border and rolls out to the emergency access that goes out the rear to Fleetwood Avenue, because we have to make the water main connection for a loop system through those two areas.
So during these phases, will houses be sold and will residents be living there between the first phase and the third phase?
Most likely, based off the duration, there will be folks as you move into like late second phase and third phase will be moving into the earlier houses that are constructed in phase one.
So I heard Mr. Petrie at the outset saying that he's looking for additional information on the Old Mill Road and bridge, but we do have an exhibit that's showing the widening of the bridge, which we can share with you. Again, I understand, Mr. Petrie, you're looking for even further information, but we can share that as well with you, just to give everybody an update on what we're planning.
It's gonna be marked 12.
I think, yep, no, A12. A12.
I'll mark this exhibit A12. And this exhibit just consists of one sheet, so it'll just be A12. This is a dimensional exhibit for Old Mill Road entrance. If you recall, it looks very familiar to a prior exhibit that we had with coloring of how the road was going to be basically expanded. This one is more just to go over the dimensions, because we talked about widths that are required to meet RSI standards and right-of-way widths where public-private right-of-ways end and start. So we wanted to kind of make this a little bit more graphical to depict that and explain that as we go through the exhibit. So referencing Exhibit A12, essentially you'll note that the Old Mill Road Bridge here had a minimum width of 27.5 feet between two abutments for one end. We're going to obviously now talk about the width at 20. We're going to propose the cartway through there at 28 feet and adjust the abutments and redeck the bridge so that we can continue to maintain 28 feet through the entrance off of West Greenbrook, and then 28 feet will continue inward towards the proposed project. And at the edge of the exhibit, you'll see where I noted the public area versus private. This line here, several hundred feet into, let's say, the former golf course property, that's where the right-of-way, the public right-of-way for Old Mill Road ends, and then past that would be private right-of-way or a private roadway system with a 50-foot right-of-way, but private. So knowing that we have a 40-foot right-of-way for the existing Old Mill Road public area, we're going to propose a 10-foot easement, access easement, along the northern or northwestern section to basically make that a 50-foot area where you can do roadway improvements, including sidewalk, the footbridge we mentioned earlier. And that then, the 50 feet would match up with the proposed 50-foot internal right-of-way that's private.
And Mr. Petrie did have a comment in his memo, and we agree that the easement would be dedicated to the HOA.
So as you develop this plan, Mr. Cruz, what it looks like to me is that your curb line is extending down, and the curb line is actually going to transition to be the abutment on either side of the bridge. Is that correct?
Yeah, right now the proposal is the curb line to meet up with the abutment. Again, as we go through the adjustments to the abutment, then that will become more detailed.
Right, because there's got to be some sort of a of a guide rail, certainly on the approaching lanes, in and out, that precludes an errant car from leaving the road and going into Greenbrook. And so and the interaction between that guide rail and the crash cushions and the driveway and the wall of the bridge is the type of thing that I need to see so that I can be assured that the proposal will work.
Understood.
Okay?
Yep.
Okay. I think from there, we had planned to just touch on the updated memorandum we received from Burgess Associates. So in that memorandum, there was commentary about a potential variance related to the emergency access. Oh, that reminds me. Mr. Cruz, do you have the updated emergency access easement that shows the access going out to the roads?
Oh, yes, sorry.
Yeah. And just while he's getting it, as a reminder, when we were here in October, we had shown a truck turning radius showing the emergency access easement, and the question from the board was that we show the access going all the way out to the roads.
Right.
So this is the updated exhibit. And this, yeah, this is gonna be A13.
All right, I've marked Exhibit A13, and as Kata mentioned, I understand I wasn't here at the previous meeting, but this is an expansion of the prior exhibit where we had shown the fire truck maneuverability through the access of the new access from the interior development now, which is basically, if you're looking at the bottom right-hand section of the exhibit, this area here is the Fairfield portion of the project. Now to the left of the exhibit, going out to the upper left-hand corner, that's Passaic Avenue, leading basically from the office park internal to the actual project. We had cut off the exhibit before it's gotten through the entire access drive of the office park, or the continuation of the access drive, which leads basically northward out to West Greenbrook Road. So we just extended the vehicle maneuverability to show that the functionality through those two areas, and it continues to provide access for the fire trucks through the existing office park and from West Greenbrook Road interior to the project.
And the property owner knows this could possibly be an option that's going to happen in case of an emergency?
Yep, so there's an existing emergency access easement today as between these two parcels, and the property owner is aware that we would be looking to continue that emergency access easement.
In your next submittal, would you include these exhibits as part of that submittal? Because I know we have truck turning submittals that were made before as part of the full set of plans, just so we have the opportunity to review.
Sure.
Okay. Going back to the Burgess memo, no. Do you have any other exhibits I'm forgetting to talk about? Okay. All right. So then I'm going to go to the Burgess memo. There was also a comment asking about parking associated with the single-family homes. And so, Mr. Cruz, each of the single-family homes has a two-car garage as well as a driveway space for starters, correct?
Correct.
And then in addition to that, there's on-street parking available, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
What is the requirement for a three-bedroom home as far as parking on premises?
Three-bedroom home is essentially 2.4 spaces per unit.
No, that's the apartment. I'm talking for a single-family home.
So
How do you know how many parking spaces based on the number of bedrooms for a single-family home? Is there a
Yes.
calculation for that?
Yes, yeah, there is. Sorry, I just got to get it from the.
Yeah, no problem.
Sorry, some of this stuff doesn't come to my top of my head as I get up in age. So for a three-bedroom, single-family home, RSIS standard requires 2 spaces per unit. That's the requirement from the standards.
And you have 4, 2 in the garage and 2 in the driveway?
Right, but RSIS won't allow you to take credit for
No, I-
4, it says 3.5.
Right.
So we only get credit for 3.5.
Okay.
Right, and then there's also on-street parking
And
as
on-street
well.
parking.
And then, I know you keep talking about parking. This is gonna be a private community, and you're going to allow overnight parking there, or are you, is it, correct me if I'm wrong, is it called Title 39? Are we gonna have any jurisdiction in there? Because we don't allow overnight parking in the rest of our community.
Yep. So that's something that we've talked about, I think, at both of our prior meetings, and the applicant has agreed to Title 39 and to conform to your ordinances.
Okay.
Yep. There's also a question in the Burgess memorandum with regard to electric vehicles. We previously testified that there'll be 10 electric vehicles in the not electric vehicles, electric vehicle spaces in the affordable community. But then in addition to that, Mr. Cruz, all of the garages are outfitted for electric vehicle compatibility. Is that right?
That's correct.
The next comment I wanted to touch on was with regard to lighting. And I believe we previously touched on this as well, and that there will be no glare associated with the lighting to any of the surrounding neighbors, right?
Correct.
Okay. With regard to refuse collection, the comment is making sure that the hauler is an appropriate size to collect, and the applicant will certainly do so based on its experience. And the nice thing is that with a private hauler, we can adjust as necessary to, change the pickup a number of times refuse is picked up.
And that's each individual home with a garbage can, not like a centralized dumpster or anything like that?
So, I'm sorry, this is the comment in the memos with regard to the affordable units. That's what I was referring to. I think those were all of the open questions from the planning memo. Let me just see if we have other items that we can clear out while we have everybody here. So, no, that's the wrong thing. I'm going to Mr. Petrie's memo now, and a few items there. In general comments in 5A, there was a question regarding signage. The signage is, the detail for signage is provided on sheet 47, and its location is shown on sheet 43. And Mr. Cruz, just to reiterate, a monument sign is being proposed at the entrance, and no wayfinding signs are being proposed. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. I think that also in that same section 5, in addition to asking about the construction phasing, which I know you just covered in detail, there was a question surrounding construction traffic. So can you talk a little bit about how that's expected to work?
Sure. For construction traffic, since this is a large project, the initial site work activities will basically start with large vehicles being delivered to the site, and that will then stay on site for months as the earthwork activities go. Obviously, there'll be some additional construction vehicles coming on site, but not a constant flow of traffic onto the site when site work operations are going on. So yes, there will be some construction traffic, but not day-to-day heavy volume. Once the heavy equipment and the earth moving equipment and other equipment used for utility installations are basically on site. Then once that operation minimizes and that dies down, that equipment will be left off, and then there'll be typical more routine visits for deliveries of construction materials for the houses and for the laborers and the contractors who work on the houses, which will be coming. But those vehicles, again, are typically smaller trucks, pickup trucks, vans, other than an occasional larger delivery of potential roof trusses for housing construction.
And I think the applicant previously said, but I'll reiterate that the applicant has agreed that it will coordinate with the high school to make sure that we're not conflicting with their peak times in terms of any of our deliveries.
And all construction throughout this whole project will be coming in through the main entrance to the Greenbrook Country Club, correct?
That's correct. You remember my,
Yeah,
Yes.
I remember you said that. I
Yes.
just want to make sure, because in the resolution, it's going to say, and I think this is one of the things we really want to nail down, you're not going to be using that secondary access road at all for construction. You'll be coming in through the main entrance and your access road that you're putting in between the two developments.
right, so the heavy construction equipment, soil movement, to the extent that there is any, would be going that way as well. You're expecting material delivery?
Material deliveries, that, yeah, but then once it gets into the typical pickup truck or van for addition for laborers to help out with home construction, then they would be coming potentially through both entrances.
Through the old mill.
The old Mill Road entrance, correct.
But those are,
So
Those are
we
small-
are never going to be using that emergency secondary access road
oh, no.
through any of the construction, correct?
Correct, Mr. Gasper.
Okay.
So, and just to be super clear about it, neither of the emergency accesses, because as you know, we
Well, no,
have,
the other one is restricted for emergency vehicles. This one is restricted in case the bridge goes out.
correct,
Right.
Correct.
So we're
So-
not going to be using that through any of the construction phases.
correct.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
When you guys discussed the 3 different construction phases, you spoke specifically about house construction, the single-family construction. Can you speak to when the multifamily age-restricted and non-age-restricted buildings will fall into that phasing?
So those have to be done, there's a, as you, I'm sure you know, there's a phasing schedule that's required to be respected, that's in the settlement agreement with the town that I think mirrors the UHawk, but whatever's in the settlement agreement is what we have to do. So as part of the construction, as we're doing the homes, we need to make sure that the affordable homes are coming online at the same time to abide by that settlement agreement phasing schedule.
Okay.
Okay. I'm up to 5D. This is just a clarification. So there's a sidewalk network that's going to be provided within Fairfield, which is, but there won't be separate walking paths. I just wanted to make it clear. So that, but the sidewalk network, which has been shown on the plans, is what will be provided.
That's the street sidewalks only?
Yeah. 5F was asking about mail kiosk. I know we've talked about mail for the apartments, but Mr. Cruz, the question was with regard to how mail would be handled for the homes. Can you discuss that, please?
Sure. I'm sure you're aware the post office now wants to have a centralized collection even for single-family homes. So in the open areas that have been mentioned at the entrance as you come in off the Old Mill Road Bridge, we'll provide a centralized kiosk for mail delivery in coordination with the postmaster for layout orientation and typical mailbox type. And also then we'll provide a couple of additional parking spaces in that area. So as residents travel in, they can park next to the centralized location, pick up their mail and continue on inward to their proposed homes.
The regular mailboxes in the apartments you pointed out would be in those alcove type areas?
Yes. So, right, so the mail for the apartments is handled separately, so it's on-site in their buildings. And then for the single-family homes, the post office now requires that there be mail kiosks for them as well, so rather than it coming to each individual home, and that's what Mr. Cruz was describing.
So you'll set up a plan for where they'll be in each area?
Most likely with the amount of homes and what our experience in the past, but we would have to coordinate with your postmaster, is they'll probably want one location for all homes. And again, as close to the front of the property so that when the post delivery comes in, they're close proximity, they can unload all at one mail kiosk and then leave and not have to travel through the entire community. And then obviously when the residents also come through, they can pick up their mail and continue onward into the property.
There's a couple of small open space lots as you come in that are non-buildable really, but maybe could accommodate this.
And that's the location, yes.
And that's, I just want some commitment that, you know, that something like that's gonna happen. That's all I was looking for, really.
Yes. And that,
And I know that you may be restricted in terms of having those mailboxes in the North Caldwell section where the easement is. So,
but it's exactly where we're planning on putting them, and there should be enough room left for the one lot in Fairfield should that become an issue.
okay.
And actually, Mr. Petrie, that's a nice segue to your next comment, which was comment 6 in your memorandum, which is regarding those open space lots. And so we agree that they would be designated as non-home lots, meaning no homes would be built on those lots. We may have the mailbox kiosks on those lots.
Exactly what I hoped for.
Yep, we agree.
So real quick, the package deliveries will go to each individual home?
Through UPS and typical overnight
Amazon.
carriers, that still goes per home. But anything through the Postal Service, the centralized kiosk will have package boxes in them as well for pickup.
Comment 7, this was asking about the temporary construction easement and the utility easement. Mr. Petrie, your comment was they're still on the plans, and that's because we still intend to have them. And I know Mr. Cruz testified about that previously. Okay.
Did you touch on the pond, or you're gonna wait on that?
What comment are you on, Mr. Chairman? I'm sorry.
I'm on page 9, and I'm on I,
Joint AOJ.
top of the page.
Oh, I think that may be.
Maintain the pond.
Oh, so that was, I didn't touch on it because we had covered it in September, but to respond to your question, yes, we do agree that there would be a joint agreement between the Fairfield HOA and the North Caldwell HOA. So yes, consistent with what we said in September, we still say it in November.
So, Mr. Petrie, we talked about the pond numerous times. I'm going to talk about it again. When you reach out to the DEP, is there a possibility that either A, the pond level can be lowered, or B, can it be used for both like it is now? It was irrigation for the golf course. Can it be irrigation for this development to draw down the water? Is there some way to make that pond capable of handling more water at a lower capacity all the time?
There's any number of things that one can do with the pond, in terms of being able to draw it down. These are regulated by DEP, though. I mean, you can't just draw down a pond because rain's coming.
No, I understand
Yeah,
that.
there's actually a permit for that. You can get a blanket permit to an extent, but in terms of using it for irrigation, the equipment was there. I don't know if it's still there or if it's been sold off, but that, you know, the equipment was there. There was a building there that housed that equipment. That would be something that the board would have to consider. I'd leave it to your zoning officer to determine if you could just leave a building like that there, if they were willing to do that, because it's on a lot that's not being built. It's probably, at this point, in or near a wetland or a transition area, so I don't know. There'd be some hiccups, but you could probably do it.
Would it be advantageous to figure out a way to draw that down or have it at a lower level all the time based on its utility as an irrigation, continuing as an irrigation? I think there would only be positive.
There's a benefit there, yes.
Yeah.
And yes, it can be done because it has historically been utilized that way. So, you know, and the HOA does have a fair amount of open space that they're responsible for maintaining. This would maybe be a reasonable way to irrigate that open space and all the landscaping.
So maybe that's something that, Mr. Cruz, you can look into, please?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Bless you.
With also, if I may, with projects of this size and even much smaller, we usually require, or we would ask for an LPR camera on the road coming in for obvious safety reasons, and we'd like a commitment, if you would, to coordinate with our police department with that, for that license plate reading camera.
Now that you're saying it, I think we talked about this in
Did we talk
September
about
too.
that? Okay.
Yeah, and I think
'Cause
we said that
talk
we would
about it-
coordinate with the police
We talk
department
about
then.
it with every
Yeah,
applicant.
yeah, I think that you brought it up in September,
Okay.
Mayor, and I think we said that we'll coordinate with the police department to give them what they want.
Perhaps a good idea would be, I know you've taken copious notes because I watch, is that if we could get some of these commitments that have been made, put in writing, so that we could start taking them out of letters and making letters shorter, so
Sure.
that we have those,
We don't want to keep adding.
because it's also going to make the attorney's job a heck of a lot easier when he tries to put together a resolution, if he has all of this stuff already, and this is the applicant has agreed to this condition, this condition, this.
Sure, no problem.
Right.
Let's see. I'm just, the ones that I'm skipping over are stuff that to our mind, we've agreed to comply with. So if anyone has questions on them, stop me.
You're gonna make sure she complied with the ones that she's skipping over with. Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to be efficient with everybody's time.
We're on page 9 of 37, are we okay?
I was moving to 10 unless anybody has any objection.
You're on 10?
Yeah?
All right.
Okay. Yep, so 3, we agreed that we would dedicate, the easement would be dedicated to the HOA. And let's talk about number 4, because Mr. Pankey did provide some testimony on that when we were together in October. This is with regard to the status of the bridge, and so he had talked about that the county's been doing reports on the status of the bridge and that it's in pretty good shape, and he identified some repairs that were going to be done as part of his testimony, including adding the concrete parapets faced with rock and improving the crossing surface. And I know, Mr. Petrie, you're looking for details of those improvements. And then I think we had also previously testified that the applicant has agreed to maintain that bridge going forward, which the county strongly encouraged us to do. And as part of that, we also agreed that we and the association after us would be taking on an obligation to do biannual reporting as to the condition of the bridge, which we agreed we would also share with Fairfield going forward as part of an ongoing reporting obligation.
I think my point on this is that, the anticipated lifespan and maintenance, ultimately, you're going to have to develop a budget for maintenance and replacement costs for the overall development.
Yes.
And this is one of those costs, and it has the potential to be a scary one. And I just want to understand what the anticipated costs are, so that when we're reviewing overall costs, we understand, where this falls into place.
So I want to make sure I understand what you're asking for, Mr. Petrie. So are you asking for an estimate of what we think the reserve study number is for the bridge, or are you asking for what the initial outlay is for doing the work that we're intending to do with tell me what you're looking for.
Well, we are going to obviously look for an overall engineer's estimate for inspection escrow. But I think the analysis of the anticipated lifespan is something that the board is concerned with. I think you heard at the last meeting that there's a lot of burden on this homeowners association in terms of cost. Maintenance of sewers, maintenance in some way of water, maintenance of storm sewers, maintenance of roads, maintenance of a bridge, maintenance of a bunch of walls and an entire, and dams and storm sewer systems. It's gonna do it the opposite way, but that's okay. So I think, you know, the board needs to be comfortable that, you know, when we act on this, that the costs are something that's, you know, achievable. You know, you've got 150 homes here and a site for apartments. And I asked the question earlier, is the landlord of the apartments? Yes, the landlord's gonna participate. Well, that's part of the reason for that question is where's the money coming from to fund the long-term maintenance of the utilities and the stormwater system and the infrastructure that affects the township of Fairfield? Because as the township indicated earlier, you know, if the homeowners association doesn't do it and the township is forced to do it, then how does the municipality recuperate their money if the association couldn't afford to do it to begin with?
Got it. So I think I'm following what you're asking. So, and I appreciate you taking the time to clarify because it's helpful so that we can get you the information you're looking for. Generally, as we've talked about before, as I said, the landlord's going to be contributing to the costs. The HOA and the landlord will have an agreement to share the costs related to kind of exclusively the Fairfield side. And then in addition to that, as we talked about, the North Caldwell Homeowners Association also has to chip in with respect to the improvements that are benefiting the North Caldwell side as well. So there's cost sharing, different costs are being shared different ways, if you're following me so far.
Understood.
And then, as you know, for a homeowners association, there's a number of different kind of pots that the association has to maintain to fund different kinds of expenses throughout its life going forward. So in the very beginning, the sponsor, which is what the state calls folks who are selling the homes, has to do a preliminary reserve study, and there are regulations that govern how that reserve study is done and what has to go into it and the lifespans of various things that are associated with the reserve study. So that needs to be done, and it has to establish a 30-year funding plan that the HOA is advised of, and all buyers are advised of before they buy a unit. They see what that funding study looks like and what the budget's going to be. As part of that study, it recommends an annual reserve contribution to meet the future obligations. And then the reserve study is required to be updated periodically to reflect the actual construction. Once the actual construction is completed, it has to deal with replacement costs, inflation adjustments, et cetera. And actually, the state's gotten pretty strict about some of this as a result of that building that collapsed in Florida. So the regulations have been updated somewhat frequently in the last couple of years as a reaction to that situation. And so then, in addition to having the reserve study within the association documents, you have the reserves for deferred maintenance, for replacement, for capital improvements, and a working capital fund. And there are funds collected at each closing, not just from the initial buyer, but then for subsequent buyers that all chip into those to the working capital fund as well. So in addition to that kind of one-time fee when you're buying a unit, then you obviously have the monthly HOA fees, a portion of which are meant to go towards the continuing funding of those reserve funds. So that's the mechanics, but I understand that in addition to the mechanics, you're looking to have some idea of what the scope is to make sure that it's, as you said, achievable. And again, that would the scope of what would be required for homeowners to buy is something that's also required to be disclosed to homeowners when they buy a unit, and that's incorporated into the homeowners documents, so that everybody knows that, you know, they're not just buying a house with a mortgage, but they also have an obligation to pay dues and what those dues are. So all of that would be disclosed to them as well, but we can try to get you a ballpark.
Yeah, I think the concern is that the funds collected need to be sufficient to maintain all these.
Yep. So, and that's exactly what the New Jersey regulations now require, and it was a direct result of what happened in Florida where you had associations that weren't reserving appropriately. So you're absolutely right, Mayor. That's what's required now is to do these budget studies and to make sure that they're funded, that the association is funding appropriately to avoid a tragedy. Or passing the buck to somebody else, to your point.
Completely side question.
Hmm.
Will the individual homeowners be doing their own landscaping, mowing
Oh.
grass and all? There's no, like, one guy doing it, the whole community?
My understanding is the individual homeowners are responsible for the landscaping within their lot. Of course, like the open space areas the association is maintaining.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'm moving on. I think we're clear, Mr. Petrie, on what you're looking for in terms of with regard to the bridge, so I'm not going to belabor that comment. Your comment on speed tables, that was when we had talked about back in September as well. That's something that the applicant will consider. We typically don't do it and leave it to the association to make a determination as to whether they want it once they're in place. We do have speed limits of 25, and as we said before, we will be doing Title 39 as well as the LPR cameras for enforcement.
So can I make a suggestion
sure.
before we go any further? Sterling Green probably has a lot of questions
Oh,
they want to
sure.
ask, and you're going through technical stuff that they don't really care about.
No problem.
So maybe we can just
Yep.
go public and let them ask questions based on testimony that was
Sure.
given.
Sure, let's pause here then.
point,
Yeah, that
thank
makes
you.
perfect sense.
Is there anyone from the public that has any questions for the engineer as of what we've discussed? So,
On the testimony tonight.
come on up. Your name and address for the record.
I would have just kept going, Mr. Gasparini, so thank you.
Good evening, Nicholas Bozzo, BOZZO, 53 Schindler Way, Fairfield, part of the Sterling Green. Several questions. Well, first of all, I'll make a comment. I think the photo, and I appreciate Mr. Petrie saying you worked very hard to try to make it better, but I think it's still all relative. But I think the photographs you put up are a little disingenuous. You show it in full bloom and full foliage, which is really only half the year. I think you really need to go look at what it's going to look like in another month when there are no leaves on the trees, and just how many trees you're going to have to plant in order to try and break up that vista. So I'll make that as just a statement. You said yourself that you can't plant certain trees of a certain size because nursery restrictions. I mean, anything's possible with money. It depends on how much you all want to spend. But my question really is, what are you going to do to protect the foliage and the trees and everything that's already there? Because there are root systems, where you start changing grading, you start changing water flow, and that has a significant impact on what happens to what's already there. And how are you going to make sure you don't kill that? And if you kill a 50-foot tree that's already there, you yourself in your own testimony said you really can't replace that. You can get a 8 or 10-foot tree. So I am curious what you're going to do to protect that. I don't know if you want to take these one at a time, or you want me to give you.
If we can, let's take them one at a
That's
time, because
fine.
I don't want to get halfway through and then forget something for you.
That'd be fine.
So what I mentioned earlier is that we were going to maintain an area of 20 feet from the common property line inward to the development and leave it in its natural state. So if there are trees there that are currently there, we're not proposing any grading in that area, so it's going to remain. And then we're going to supplement the landscaping that we showed on the exhibits around those trees appropriately so that it continues to make a visual buffer. So outside of that 20-foot, no vegetation should be removed unless it's what we discussed here, where there's scrub brush or something that isn't aesthetically pleasing to the residents of Sterling Green. So trees
And I
past
think that's a
that for
different
grading?
discussion. I'm not sure that there's a common agreement amongst
That's fine.
Sterling Green on
Then-
whether
then
that should
trees-
happen or shouldn't.
Trees past that, internal past that, if there's any vegetation, those will be removed for the natural construction of the overall project.
Okay, so it's your testimony that anything that's there will not be harmed based on the fact that you're starting so far away.
20 feet, past 20 feet, yes.
Okay. And have you brought in landscape architects, horticulturists, arborists that support your comments on that?
About removing the trees,
No, about not killing what's there.
not killing what's there. So we have our own landscape architects look and prepare the plans that are included in the set. So we have landscape architects on board that look at that as they're laying out the overall proposed additional landscaping in those areas.
Okay.
Sorry,
Hemmerman.
sorry.
Sorry.
I should have learned from 2 months ago, sorry.
Well, for what it's worth for the members of this committee and board, I think you should make sure that there is somebody who's a landscape architect, horticulturist, arborist, who's making sure that, and it's not just for Sterling Green, it's all the property that surrounds any of the lines around the Fairfield border. This is not just about me and my home, this is about what's best for our entire town and community. I think this might be a reasonable request. I know apparently some people have walked the property. I live on the property. I'm not quite sure what the property line is. So I think it might be a reasonable request to ask the applicant to clearly mark out where the property lines are.
Mr. Bazzo, Mr. Cruz, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the property line has been staked currently.
Yes.
There are portions of the property where they actually put in markers that say property line. There's about 4 of them that I saw.
Are they
delineate-
colored or are they color coded with flags or are they just in the ground? defined?
They are flags and they do say property line
Okay.
by those.
My apologies, and
No,
they're not
it's-
clear in the area that I look at, so I
It's-
did not go walk on their property or anybody else's properties.
You'd have to walk through the weeds because
Okay.
they're, the weeds, when we were there, I think were waist high and the stakes are only about, 18 inches high. But if you kind of go along and it's about halfway into the brush area, you'll probably find some of them. There's one, if you look right by where the, there's an erosional channel that comes out of that slope.
Mhm.
Right behind that, you'll find one. And that'll show you what to look for.
Okay, fair enough. I think the other thing, you talk about how you're going to be putting in rules and regulations within the agreements, bylaws, whatever the legal documents are, that talks about you're not going to allow for anything more than 3,000 and something square foot of impervious coverage improvements. What would ever stop a future homeowners association and people in charge to be able to ever change the bylaws around that? I mean, our own town, and not putting any, pointing any fingers at anybody on this particular board, but we've had rules and regulations that have changed all the time that haven't necessarily been for the better for our town. So how do we make sure that that doesn't happen? Because that change in impervious coverage and improvements and everything else is what's going to create even more additional water concerns for anybody who's downhill of it.
So one of my favorite things that I do as an attorney is write homeowner association documents, because it's one of the only times that we get to write the rules as opposed to just live by them. So one of the great things about writing homeowners association documents is that you can say how amendments are made and what amendments can be made. So there are certain things that can never be changed, for example, to protect mortgage holders. And so they can build into the language of the homeowners association documents exactly, typically there's requirements as to what kind of a majority or supermajority are needed for certain kinds of changes associated with the documents, or things that can't be changed at all, again, to protect certain constituents like municipality, like a mortgage holder, usually with an exception for emergencies or to comply with the law. So it could be written.
Is it your legal opinion that you can write this in such a way where it can never be changed? Regardless of whether it's supermajority or 100%?
Yeah, you get to write them any way you want to write them.
Is that what you're proposing will happen?
That's what we're proposing will happen. As we said, we'll coordinate further with the town during resolution compliance, but the homeowners association documents will be written in accordance with the requirement for the resolution. So if we end up at the 3,062 square foot limit, that's what it will say.
Okay, thank you. No further questions, thank you.
anyone else from the public like to be heard?
Good evening. I'm Anthony Patrick, 55 Schindler Way, in Sterling Green. I do want to just clarify, when we were going over the plan, Ms. Cruz, earlier, you were mentioning about the 2 homes that were moved. And we appreciate that very much, thank you. But I believe there may have been a misspoken. I believe you referenced 130 and 131. And there is only 130 that was being moved, not 131.
Yeah.
And then 58 on the other side. So just for the record, is that correct or incorrect?
That's correct. I meant to say 58 and 130 were moved. Those were the only 2 that were moved.
Okay.
Correct.
Just for the record, I wanted to
Thank you.
clarify that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Also, when it comes to landscaping, I'm a little concerned because it would be my opinion that we as Sterling Green should really dictate what the buffer should be as far as plant life, size, variety, and so on. And if not, then we should have an input and a last refusal or approval process. I'd like to know if that's possible, because one of the things that came about is I'm very much into landscaping. And one of the things you mentioned are, deciduous, obviously, fir trees, and then you mentioned pines. Pines, to me, are one of the worst to be planted, because in the wintertime, they lose about 50% of their needles. Okay, so they're not really good for buffer areas. Fir trees, more or less, would be something we'd like to see. And again, I understand the restrictions. And in development that we have, 12 to 14, 16 feet is generally an acceptable range. So my question is, are we as Sterling Green going to have a review process with the right to change some of the plant life if we find and deem they're not befitting what we are looking to have as a buffer?
So, Mr. Patrick, the process will be, and we talked about it a little bit before, so there's currently a landscape plan that was submitted as part of our most recent submission, which matches what was on the view shed that you saw. And what we talked about based on input from the board is we're going to be updating that further. The board ultimately is the authority to approve those plans, and that what we said going forward is we would coordinate further with the board's professionals, likely once the project is underway, to do kind of a spot judgment of we need a tree here because we didn't realize there was going to be a spot, or we don't need a tree here because this other tree's already doing the screening, and make adjustments in the field. So from our perspective, the process would be us coordinating with the town's professionals to make sure that we have the right mix. I'm sure that the town would accept input from Sterling Green folks as well, but really the town needs to be the decision maker in terms of the landscape plan.
Okay. Well, then I ask the board then if they'd be willing to at least work with us, before making a final decision. That would be something that I would like to.
So, we're going to have Mr. Petrie take a look at the landscape plan. And certainly, I know that Sterling Green has had a lot of input to what we're going to do. And I'm sure he's willing to listen to see what variety of tree you would like to see, as opposed to, a pine as to a fir. I'm not a landscape person, so I don't really know the differences of much of them,
Right.
but
there
Mr.
are
Petrie
differences
certainly willing
and
to,
so on. And,
he's certainly willing to listen.
yeah. And as Mr. Bozzo did say, that right now we were looking at, renderings, during a summer vegetation spree. Once the winter comes, the deciduous trees lose all their leaves, and we're looking and staring right at structures and buildings. So it's very important that beyond those trees are fir trees and so on that will maintain a visual blockage of those buildings and structures. So the placement of them and the variety is very important in coming up with a landscape plan.
Yes.
So you have access to the landscape plan because it's a public record. So once the final landscape plan is submitted, you can take a look at it.
Okay.
And then you can come
Prior
to
to
another
approval.
meeting. prior to approval.
And, I mean, there's one on record right now, as well, so you can at least
I
see
have
where
not
we are
seen one.
today.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know, but just so at least
Available
there's
for
something
you.
there if you want to
Okay,
take a
great.
look, yeah.
All right, well, we appreciate that. Thank you then.
And Mr. Patrick, if I may, that's one of our concerns also, but I don't want anybody to have any false impressions that no matter what gets planted there, you're not gonna see structures.
No, we know that.
Because it's upland. So you're going to see some structures, just like you would in any other neighborhood.
Right.
But we are doing our best to screen it the best that we can, and, you know, we will continue to make sure
So
that
we could ask.
that we
Thank
can
you.
do.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
Laura Pepper Doyle, 25 Schindler Way. I'm only making a statement because we're not talking about water. But we did have our engineer, the Falcon Group, take a look at everything that was submitted. Because, again, we wanted somebody independent, okay, versus someone who the township is paying, someone who Toll Brother is paying. Falcon Group did submit a report to us, and I did send a copy to Stephen Burry and Toll Brothers. But we're not here to talk about water. But there were some issues based on what was originally submitted that we're hoping can get addressed.
And just, again, without getting too deep into it, we are in receipt of that report and we're looking at those comments as
You
well.
take it under advisement.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyone else like to be heard? Seeing no one?
Wait.
Oh, okay.
Stay down. It's okay. No, I'm fine, Yeah. Thanks, Council. I'm Stuart Friedman at 33 Schindler Way. I apologize for coming in late because I was involved in some Veterans Day ceremonies of another organization. But I just need some clarification. We're not discussing the water, any water issues now, and it's that deferred to another meeting.
So, Mr. Friedman, Mr. Petrie has comments in his review memorandum the applicant has agreed to comply with, but has not updated its plans to show how it's complying with those comments. So the board has asked us to submit plans that incorporate those comments into them and then to provide further testimony after those plans have incorporated those comments. So we're not really doing a lot of testimony on stormwater tonight because those additional comments are going to be worked into the plans.
Might I say a little about that, since it was, but
It's up to the chairman.
that's my principle. Let me explain.
Go ahead.
Sure.
I moved into Sterling Green in 2012 after living in North Caldwell for another 20 years prior to that. I moved in, we took possession in August of that year. There was a dry hurricane, if I remember correctly. All our power went out from wind, but we didn't have really a water event at that particular time. But there was a storm, a rainstorm, rather heavy, sometime in late December or January. I live in one of the units that has both a sump and an active pump. It had never gone off at that time in the whole. I woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of a pump. My wife and I didn't know what was going on at first. The subsequent story is that since that date, every time there has been a rainstorm, my sump pump goes off at an increased number of hours following the storm. So something is changing in the water table below. I know that North Caldwell moved either a sewage pipe or a sanitary pipe or a wastewater pipe
so, which originally was underneath my house at 33 is part of a 4-unit structure. My house has one of the only sump pumps that goes off ever, let alone after every storm. It's not coming, it's groundwater, it's not coming surface water rolling down. There's no surface water around the house. I do know this, that when Sterling Green was built, and it opened about 2002 or 2001, I'm sure it met all the requirements since it was one of the early condo developments in the town. Well, sure enough, I know that my unit and a number of other units in that row, which is I think it's the westerly row of houses. We don't we abut the golf course. Actually, we abut the wetlands on that side. I know that in 2002, 2003, about the homeowners association threatened litigation to the developer, and there was a settlement reached which included drainage facilities. They basically put a French drain around the facility, and that drain emptied into the 2 retention basins that are on the property. So my point being that whatever the expectation was and meeting all the requirements, it didn't work. There were a number of homes that suffered water damage. I know my prior owner increased the size of his sump pump from a 1/4 horsepower to a 1/3 horsepower. And I've had to replace my pump 3 times since that date from at a 1/3 power. There is water in the water table, and that is my principal concern. Most of us have finished basements. I've done everything I thought I could individually to prevent that from happening, including a supplemental siphon pump in the event of a power failure. I've taken my lead, my water drainage pipe from my sump pump, and brought it at my expense, not the homeowner's expense, and brought that water to the French drain that's about maybe 90 feet away from the house, to get that water away from the house. But still, including this winter, every time there's a major storm, my pump seems to go off for a longer period of time. Now, I know you met all the requirements here, and it's like check the boxes, but it's all 100-year or 200-year floods, and things are changing in the subsurface of Fairfield, at least where we live, on that side of Passaic Avenue. And the thought, I hear all the testimony, it kind of defies common knowledge. Even the experts report that if you take off, you substitute non-permeable land for permeable land, you're going to lose that water effect, the effect of the natural sponginess and the evaporation. There was a decision made, or one of the learned members of council, I think, said a question on the first hearing we had on this, and he said, what happens with, who's responsible if the retention basins aren't maintained? And there was a whole talk, well, the town will come in, step in, and they'll invoice the homeowners association. But I don't know who do I invoice when there's a failure of all the precautions I've taken individually, and I'm fighting the water battle. I'm not alone in this. One of the candidates in North Caldwell, don't know if he won the council race or not, who was an engineer by profession, this year's a candidate, told his story in one of the online newspapers, Tap or Patch or one of those. It was on the same day that followed the item about our hearings here. And he told a story of moving into his house and 2 years in North Caldwell. And 2 years later, guess what? He said he had to rebuild his whole basement because he couldn't tell. He wasn't forewarned, nor could he tell from his own engineering experience that there was going to be a flood in his basement. That's what I'm afraid will happen to our houses and the houses that are surrounding, similarly situated to me. So that is my concern. I mean, the situation here is unique. The golf course, when it sold their property to the Sterling developers, telling them it was ideal land for their members. In fact, members got a preference, got first dibs, and was built into our deeds for a long time. As long as the club existed, we had to give them preference at the club. So it was a wonderful thing. They were building golf course adjacent property, and they sold it to Sterling. Sterling sold it to all the original owners on, look at the wonderful site that we have here. It's adjacent to our beautiful golf course, whether you're a member or not. Well, it's that, then the golf course turns around through a number of management changes and ownership changes, and all of a sudden, they're killing their own baby, you know? I find it just unique to understand that we may ultimately suffer some of the worst damage that we have in our property because of what's going on in the golf course.
So Mr. Friedman, let me explain to you. So we have an engineer that we hired because we all have concerns about the water. Toll Brothers is very well aware of our concerns about the water. So Mr. Petrie is working with their engineer, and they're gonna come up with some type of common ground. And according to the laws of the state of New Jersey and DEP, they're all well aware of our concerns about the water. So that's why we weren't speaking about water tonight, because we're gonna table that portion of this meeting because they need to work on the water, and we're all aware of that. So, right, and we're going to conclude North Caldwell on this conversation because obviously some of the water's coming from North Caldwell. So we're doing the best we can up here to try and resolve the water issue. Obviously, if a property is sold, we can't stop them from developing the property. So, and it was a beautiful golf course in its day, but unfortunately it was sold and it's allowed to be developed. So we're here to make sure it's developed in a way that we're all comfortable with. And obviously the people of Sterling Green need to be comfortable with it. I know the developer has worked with Sterling Green to try to resolve some of the issues with the walls, and we're gonna continue to try and resolve some of the water issues. That's all I could kind of tell you at this point. We're not at the point where we're going to vote on anything. We've heard all of your concerns and we appreciate it. And I'd like to thank you for your service also.
Thank you. You're welcome. Well, I know Mr. Petrie by reputation and as a person, so I have great faith in him, and I have great faith in the board being concerned with things. As I said, my concern was not necessarily that the legalities would all be met, but nature didn't write our laws. And predictability is becoming more and more difficult. You're not going to be able to put AI on the rainfall, I don't believe, in this situation. But thank you for bearing with me.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you. Is there anyone else like to be heard? We have one person coming up.
Gary Rizzo, 11 Schindler Way. So I actually just have one question that there may not be an answer to. But if you go through all this and you build this beautiful complex of 150 homes in Fairfield, and I think it's 350 or somewhere about in North Caldwell, and you go through all DEP and you get all the permits and you build this, and 2 years down the road, to echo what Mr. Friedman was saying, homes in Sterling Green get flooded because of this, whose responsibility is it?
Well, the answer is it depends, because it depends on what's causing the flooding. So that would be the first question. So for example, if the basins at Sterling Green fail, that would not be our responsibility. If we're not maintaining our basins, that's a different issue. So the first question is, what are the facts?
I mean, so just let me say this. So if we're not flooding now, but after the structures are put up, we're flooding, something changed, right? And the only thing I could think of, it's the development that was built. So that's why I'm saying, like, who's responsible if we flood?
So, and the best I can tell you is, in the event that you have a flooding issue, and you're trying to determine who's responsible, the way the courts look at it is they look at what caused the flooding. So they would look at, are your basins working? Are our basins working? Are you maintaining yours? Are we maintaining ours? What caused the flooding? And based on those facts, responsibility would be assigned.
So it would be, you'd have to go to litigation then?
I mean, you would hope not, but it would depend on whether folks agree on what the facts are, I think.
So there's nothing then that Toll Brothers could do to say, hey, look, we're taking all the precautions, we don't think there's gonna be a problem, but if there is, we'll take responsibility for it.
Well, so for example, again, as I said, like, you all have basins as well at Sterling Green. So if you stopped maintaining your basins and had a flood,
Understand.
it wouldn't be fair for us to say, but don't worry, our homeowners association is going to cover
Understand.
that.
Mhm.
So I don't think we can give you a blanket, don't worry, we'll cover it. I think, it has to be a fact-specific analysis.
But there could be some kind of contract written that if we maintain our basins and they're not caused by that you'd be responsible for it?
Again, I don't know that you could write a contract that could cover all the different possibilities of what would cover it. What I can tell you is we are required to write what's called an operations and maintenance manual that gets recorded on the property. And that has very detailed obligations for what the applicant and then the homeowners association has to do to maintain the basins. And it gets recorded. We have to provide reporting to the town showing that we're doing all the things that we're required to do to maintain those basins. And if we don't, then there is liability. So I can tell you that much.
Okay, so there's no easy answer to it.
Right. There is no easy answer to it.
Okay, so we're.
It keeps lawyers employed.
So I guess at the
Lucky
end
for me.
At the end of the day, we could possibly be vulnerable. We're not flooding now. And as I heard them say on the council is we have a major water problem in Fairfield. So the way I look at it, it's not going to get better by building a development. If anything, it could get worse.
So that's not quite right. So the testimony that we provided, and even if you look at the report that Falcon did for your association, the conclusion is that the management of the stormwater is going to get better. It's required to by law. And in addition to that, the improvements that are being proposed, and we talked a lot about this in September, and I imagine we'll talk about it more when we're all together next time, is the way the stormwater management's been designed, it's doing a couple of things. So one is it's routing the water away from Sterling Green. So someone said before, AI can't control the rainfall, and that's true, right? We can't say it's gonna rain less. But what we are doing is we're creating stormwater management systems that route the water away from Sterling Green, as opposed to where now it just flows onto Sterling Green. And secondly, the stormwater management that we have controls the rate at which the water flows, so we can avoid too much water going into one place at one time. So the combination, and I'm saying this in like super layman's terms because I'm not the engineer, because we have a lot more technical engineering ahead of us. But the intent of that stormwater management, and even the Falcon report that your board president mentioned, which was done independently for the association, concluded that it should be better as compared to what you have today. So hopefully you can take some comfort in that.
So that should mean Stewart's pump will go off less?
Well, I don't know
might
where
not be the issue,
Stewart's
yeah.
water is coming from, but what I can say is that the flow from this property to Sterling Green should be less of a problem.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else like to be heard? Seeing no one? Continue.
Okay. So I was trying to use the time we have left to close out some other non-stormwater items. Let me see if there's anything else we can knock out while we're together. Just, I'll say, I'm up to page 13, 12A. We did confirm, and it's on the record from the last meeting, that we did use the fire department's largest vehicle for doing all of our modeling, that's shown in the exhibits for the truck turning radiuses that we submitted.
Sure, you'll verify that. Mr. Peach, you'll verify that? Okay.
Let's see. Looking to see what else we can cover. I'm in your soil movement and grading section, which I know is tied into some of this other stuff, but there may be a couple.
Stormwater management, I skipped that.
So I think comment 3, we covered that there will be some blasting, and we previously testified that that will be done in accordance with state and local requirements. I think I'm going to just touch briefly let me make sure I'm in the right section. No. So I'm skipping the stormwater management section otherwise. In the storm sewer design, which I won't spend too much time on this section either, but Mr. Petrie, you did have a comment related to the depth of the manholes and asking how that was gonna work. A lot of the, that depth has been reduced as part of the most recent resubmission to the board. There are a few that are deeper than 10 feet, as you noted in your memo, Mr. Petrie. So for those, the expectation, what we've done previously, is there'll be an easement between the unit, the homeowner, and the association, giving the association the ability to get into those manholes. And then they would be using qualified maintenance companies to do that work. I'm skipping over a bunch.
I think a lot of these things that you're trying to do now would probably be easier just done in a letter.
Sure.
It's why we usually ask for response letters, so that if it's, yes, we're doing this, then it's yes, we're doing this, and we can incorporate that document.
And I would even go a little bit further with both the planners and the professionals who put those letters in there that identified certain issues or problems. If you could then, underneath that, put in the response.
Yeah.
So then the professionals can review what they thought was important, how you're gonna handle it, and we can cross that off that list, because it's fairly lengthy, and it'll speed things up.
Yeah, no problem.
And close out a lot of open issues that are probably closed.
So I think that we've gotten to the end of the list anyway, so, yeah, that makes sense.
But now let's
Yeah.
finish it off.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, so we've been here for 3 hours. I think we covered a lot of ground. I mean, why don't we stop at this point?
Kate, I need something before we get if that's okay.
Sure.
Sure, come on forward.
Peck. P-E-C-K.
So obviously, we thank you all again for your time. The last thing we're
Just
trying to
repeat
do
your
as the
name.
applicant.
Sworn your name for the record.
I've been sworn.
Yeah. Yes,
repeat your
he's
name
been
for the
sworn
record.
previously.
Mr. Peck?
And all your licenses are in full force and effect?
Not
No,
licensed, he's a
So
fact
you're
witness.
factual?
Yeah.
Yes.
So again, we appreciate your collective time. The farthest thing we're trying to do is frustrate anyone. But it's important that I understand, we had a lot of discussion early on, a lot of back and forth about what the requirements will be for Mr. Petrie and Mr. Cruz as it relates to the DEP to come to an understanding so that this board's in a position to accept or reject our testimony and move forward on the application. I'm totally unclear on what that result is. So can somebody just confirm what's going to happen? I understand Mr. Petrie's going to draft a letter that we'll get an opportunity to review, along with Mr. King, I believe, that will go to Mr. Contoy down at DEP with his assertion about whether the property has been in a meadow condition or a maintained condition. Am I right so far?
And we're also going to include North Caldwell in on this
Fine.
conversation.
Okay, but we'll get a chance to look at that because as was alluded,
Yeah.
We gotta all be on the same page in terms of the question.
the question has to be asked in a format that's not, that's appropriate, right? So I'm good with that so far.
Okay.
Letter goes down to DEP. We hear nothing because a formal application has not been submitted because we don't have an approved plan from the municipality, which is usually the key to all conditional things that get resolved later. What happens? How long would you all think is reasonable for us to wait for the DEP, who's undergoing soon regime change, before we can come to an understanding for the board to be able to have sufficient information and comfort to act?
Well, from my perspective, a statute was read today by our engineer. To me, it was pretty concise of what the requirements were, gave difference of types of a meadow opposed to a golf course. I don't want to be biased, but I'm kind of leaning to the board's expert as to his analysis. So I think my recommendation to the board would be, based upon that statute, based upon what the engineer stated, that this is the requirement.
But that's not what we said, with respect. We said that we're going to jump ahead of the normal course and
Yes.
get a recommendation from the DEP.
That's
or-
correct.
Or
That's correct.
a determination from DEP.
That's correct. So although it's not this board's obligation to present evidence, the engineer for this board is actually going down to the DEP to help get that answer to resolve this issue. So if another letter could be sent, you could send a letter, maybe some phone calls, but at the end of the day, we need that answer. If we don't have that answer, then we have the opinion of our expert, you have the opinion of your expert. This board is going to take each of those opinions into account and make a determination.
Okay.
What we're trying to do is get a determination that both sides are happy with, because if we don't get that result from the DEP and we go forward, there's going to be, your expert says one thing, this board's expert says another thing.
Yeah, but we're ultimately bound by the DEP at our risk and expense.
That's correct.
Right. So let's just assume, for the
So-
sake of
so
argument.
you've just answered your own
So
question.
going
You need the-
forward, you would need to follow our engineer.
If you would agree with our engineer, we could move forward.
That would move forward right away.
We've put on the record and gone to significant expense to design a system that we believe is compliant.
Correct.
There's no argument that the golf course was maintained for 100 years since its inception. There was a brief lapse in maintenance, but it's maintained ever since that. We assert that it hasn't been changed of the condition, that it's an unmaintained thing. We've got testimony and everything to support that. Your engineer, and I respect his opinion, but it disagrees with that. My concern is, we go down this route where we're relying on DEP, which is not burdened at all to respond to such a question because it's not in the form of a formal application. And a month goes by. And Mr. Cruz has amended all of the other comments or addressed all the other comments in Mr. Petrie's letter, except for that one DEP issue. Is the board in a position to grant a conditional approval subject to the DEP? I'm just asking an example.
First of all, it's not really correct. You're asking the board to make a decision on facts that aren't before it. So I'd advise the board don't even entertain that.
The difference in question between Mr. Petrie and Mr. Cruz is concerns the flow of the water on the property. Is that correct?
The volume of runoff on the existing condition. And I don't think we're terribly far apart. You know,
And the resulting amount of water in the retention.
Because, okay, so DEP says 10 buckets run off of your site today. When you're finished, only eight can run off your site in the 100-year storm. You have to show a 20% reduction, okay? So the question right now, depending upon the existing condition, is did 10 run off or did 9 run off? I'm saying, based upon the unmaintained condition, maybe 9 runs off. So now they have to reduce that 9 by 20%. And quick math in my head is telling me that's, yeah. Now they're getting it down to a little bit less that they have to let run off. So the basins might get a little bit bigger. Is it substantial in terms of the size increase? I don't know. It's 3,000 pages. I can't tell you. You know, I'm not going to run it again. That's just a modeling thing. That's just what you have to do. And I don't know how big a deal it is. But my advice to this board is, you know, it's stormwater runoff. I'm going to be conservative because that's what this town needs. So if there's a conservative route, I'm taking it. This is the conservative route. I think this is what the law says. I understand that they've since, you know, cut the lawn, and that's great. But it says in any situation. I've taken application to DEP where they've gone back and they've used aerial photographs to say, hey, 2 years ago this was they grew wheat there on this property, and the grass was 3 feet high. That's a different runoff coefficient. Change it. So it wasn't that way then. Hadn't been that way in previous, but for a couple of years, that's what happened. Okay. And this is for a couple of months. I get it.
So, Mr. Petrie, let me ask you, because I understand how the DEP works, because I've been there myself. We're not going to get a definitive answer, I understand that. But will we get an opinion?
I think we can get
Because
an
I
opinion.
think
Look, we all, Dennis is a guy that's been there a long time. And the only reason I use his name is because he's one of the only people at DEP that has common sense. And he's one of the only people at DEP that's responsive.
Right.
So if I can get an email to Dennis, he might respond to the email and say, Mike, go pound salt. But he may also say, yes, this is what I think. Is it gospel? No, it's not gospel. I agree with Mr. Cruz. It's not going to be gospel. I don't think he's going to give us an applicability determination on the runoff coefficient. No. But I think he'll give us his opinion. And I think that if he agrees that Mr. Cruz is right, I'd be willing at that point to back off. And that's what I told Mr. Cruz at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So the only person who's going to change my mind is DEP. Right.
So I appreciate that. Thank you. That's the clarity I'm looking for.
So that's, exactly.
And that means a lot to the applicant
of
under the
course.
circumstance.
Of course.
An opinion is possibly the best we're going to get
I don't
in
disagree
the short
with you.
term.
I don't
Possibly.
disagree with you.
But if that happens, this board is now in a better position to.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you again for your time.
You're welcome.
What was the name of Dennis's last name again?
Contois.
Contois.
Thank you. We just have a minute to talk scheduling on our end before we figure out what date we go to, because I want to make sure we have time to get what we need to get done.
So the next meeting will be December 9th.
That much I know, but I want to see what we can accomplish before your December 9th meeting, because I don't want to show up and say we're still working on it. So
Okay.
let me just check on that. if you
Sure.
He's just a principal. It's 2 days after Pearl Harbor, too.
Probably Monday, I don't have to go Tuesday.
You go to the Great Peace?
And Saturday is Winter Wonderland.
You go to the Great Peace?
No, I don't.
Where do you go?
I go all the way up to Sussex County. I can't hold it, really going by.
I go to London County.
Okay. If we can, we're going to be optimistic and say December 9th, but within a week, we should know for sure. So if we need to request an additional adjournment, we'll inform the board at that point,
Okay.
if that's acceptable to you,
Sure.
Mr. Chairman.
So we need a motion to carry to December 9th, 7 PM,
Without any further notice.
without any further notice.
So moved.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
We have, I think, one other thing on the agenda. Hold on.
Okay.
We need approval of the bills for Peter King and Burgess Associates. We
So
have a
moved.
motion to approve the bill.
Second.
Who's the first?
So moved.
Jimmy.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you.
We shouldn't do it, it's Monday.
Would you like a motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman?
We have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Aye.
Please